and good evening, everybody. Welcome. Oh, Shadram, re-upping their adventure. Looks like 13 months for Shadram. Thank you, Shadram. I am, my name is Derek Melinda, and I am joined tonight by my two good friends.
Yeah, we're here.
Bob and Mr. Aaron Smith, who is still finishing up his dinner.
Pardon me.
Yeah. But tonight we are going to be talking about the Sorcerer, and we're going to be talking about the history of the Sorcerer. So this is sort of a D&D Pathfinder stream in the sense that we'll start with the history of the Sorcerer, where the Sorcerer came from in Dungeons & Dragons. We'll take it up through the editions onto the most recent sort of main D20 release of the Sorcerer, which of course is for Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Now, you usually do these by yourself.
I do.
You go deep dive, but I have some experience. At least I played the Sorcerer in PF2.
So what level was that?
Technically it was 20, though we might have skipped some levels in between.
It was 20. You were 20th level.
Yeah, we ended at 20, yes.
You cast level 10 magic missile.
I did. I also cast like Cataclysm or something.
Yeah, and it was terrible.
I think it was all half damage.
No, it was. I remember you were
Did
like,
I get resistance like everything?
Yeah.
But it was ideally cool.
You were like, I want to cast this. I was like, Bob, this is so bad.
It was ideally.
Yeah, I was like, this spell is so bad.
It was
like,
cool in theory.
And you like dropped this level 10 thing, and it like made all of its saves and all the resistance and had like elemental, and like it took like 30 damage.
Yeah, it was
like, total. It was actually really
definitely way below 100.
It was pathetic. Is
Yeah.
what? Yeah, it was really low.
But I got to roll a lot of dice.
And that is all one could ask for.
But that's why we're here.
Yes.
Because we have a little bit of experience. Obviously, Smith has a lot more, and he just got done playing, or you're still playing a Sorcerer, technically.
To be fair, I want to say.
I think you've had more sorcerers than wizards.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? You were kind of big on the sorcerer train there. Like Ezekiel was a sorcerer. Ezekiel was a sorcerer.
No.
Yeah, he was.
Well, I've had Ezekiel like 40 times.
Not the
like
4th edition Ezekiel, the 3rd edition Ezekiel.
The new Ezekiel is.
And then
definitely
I remember
Sorcerer.
you had a sorcerer who was like specialized in fire magic. It was a campaign where we fought a lot of trolls. You had flame arrow and fireball,
I don't remember.
and scorching ray. I kind of associate you with sorcerer.
I actually don't like sorcerers.
Good thing to have you on the stream, Mr. Smith.
Well, I was going to say PF2 is the first time, apparently not, first time I can recall at the moment where I've played a sorcerer for a duration in a campaign. It wasn't like a 3-shot or something.
Oh, okay.
You know, because we've actually played AV, and yeah, I've played a sorcerer through AV.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and we'll get into this. But see, I always kind of thought, now, of course, I knew you loved wizards, and
Yeah,
you're far more
that's
into
the wizards. My jam.
You love books and the spell
Yeah.
books and things like that. But I kind of always thought that maybe that you like sorcerers because you like Wheel of Time and channeling and all that stuff so much. And sorcerers definitely have a hint of that.
So I was thinking about that today because I assumed we'd bring it up. You know, what's the difference between wizardry and sorcery, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. I do love that, but I actually don't feel like that's well represented with the sorcerer class in D&D.
Oh, I completely agree with you.
Because like, so my beef with the sorcerer, and the reason I like wizards, is the complete lack of utility. But beyond just the mechanics of the game, you got to remember, I'm kind of like way too into these games. Like it's escapism for me, right? So I like to imagine what would it be like to be this kind of person, right? What would it be like to be Superman, right? What would it be like to be the sorcerer? And I wouldn't want to be a sorcerer. I mean, if my option was that and nothing, sure, I'll take it. But like, I actually find them very limited. And like,
Interesting.
yeah, well, but I'm weird.
I guess I
Keep
haven't
in
played
mind,
enough Wizards because I was like, I felt pretty strong with it.
some of my favorite levels are like really like levels 3 and lower in terms of spell casting.
Yeah.
Because I like to think about these spells in like a real life.
Mhm.
Like how powerful would comprehend languages be? You know, how powerful would cure disease, right? Like think of these spells that for most of the time we don't even pay attention to in D&D, but apply it in real life, right? And that's why like a wizard for me is amazing because like oh, if I need to do something, all I have to do is figure out the spell.
Yeah, I think there could be, and again, we'll get into the history of this. It's kind of more abbreviated, unlike some of our previous streams where, the fighting man and the paladin and all this other stuff goes back to the very roots of the game.
Yeah, there's not that much here.
Sorcerer, it does not have as much history.
But anyways, finish that thought real quick.
People want you to get up on the mic there, Smith.
I'm just trying not to chew in your ear. It's the utility, right? You think about channeling Wheel of Time, that's like almost infinite utility.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
And that's not what sorcery is
Right.
in D&D, right? I think it's one of those things.
But you have to be separate from Wizard, right?
Okay, but okay, no, we're getting off topic. But in Wheel of Time, you don't have infinite utility. There's still the idea that you have to learn certain weaves and there's certain talents,
and you have certain
and there's a skill to it. It's not
orientation.
like any channeler can just sit there and go, I'm the Green Lantern. You know, I can make anything I can imagine.
That's
appear.
fair enough. But I mean, potatoes. What we're talking about in context of sorcery here. Sorcery is a hack to the fancy and spellcasting.
It
system.
is. It is absolutely. Yeah.
And so, one, that's kind of just not flavorful for me. Two, it feels like a hack. It definitely feels like not as good as it could be. And three, once you get past your repertoire and how you prepare and all that stuff, you're casting the same exact spells. And in D&D versus real time, those spells are locked in. The spell does the thing, and that's it. And so for me, being like, wow, I can learn like 2 spells of this level for my entire life, that seems very restrictive. Versus like, oh, I'm really good at fire, but if I need to, I'm in a pinch, I can pick up this like fly spell, right?
Yeah, I mean, the utility does seem like you could like pick up a scroll and sort of learn this like in theory, like
Yeah,
he's
that's
got a
cool,
book.
yeah.
I'm gonna like versus the sorcerer's innate. Like I have to like sort of learn it within.
Well, and that gets to what it comes down to is sort of the core distinction between what we would call prepared casters and what we call spontaneous casters. Is that if you are playing in a game where, you know, we'll call it combat as war is sort of more of the du jour, you know what I mean? Where if a wizard takes spells A, B, and C, and D today, he's going to be really effective.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, in a different situation, A, B, C, and D, those spells kind of suck. E, F, G, and H, those are great spells. We don't really have spells like that anymore.
I was just gonna say, in modern game, I feel like you have to take magic missile, you have to take fireball, you have to take spells.
That's why I'm playing a sorcerer in PF2.
Right.
Because playing a wizard would suck.
You pick
and
the same
doesn't
things.
matter. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, because, number one, I mean,
That's actually an interesting point. That you don't really need to worry about these versatility as much.
No.
You want to be on the arcane list, and you want to get these certain ones.
And we're going to talk about this because it's a mix, right? There's things that mechanically I find very intriguing, like crossblood evolution, and obviously have fun with that. I like that from a certain aspect. I also think it diminishes the game and the class.
I agree, actually. I mean, you take it because it's
Interesting.
amazing.
Yeah.
But what are we even doing here?
What are we doing here?
If you could just, take a thing and then still if you can have your cake and eat it too.
Why not?
Why not? But yeah, what I really think is, let's get into it a little bit.
I like this from Lazarus Dark. Should Doctor Strange really be the wizard supreme? He doesn't get magic from his bloodline.
That is true.
Yeah, he's a sorcerer supreme.
Well, and to be fair, there's
he's out there getting tombs.
No, there's
and
a great
tomes.
line. I think it's from Thor Ragnarok where Thor goes to the world to get his father back, and Doctor Strange intercepts him, and he's like walking around the Sanctum Sanctorum. It's one where like Loki's in another dimension falling for 20 minutes, and he's like teleporting him all around his place.
With the beer, right?
It's with the beer that refills.
Such a great scene.
And he goes, and like Thor goes, so Earth has wizards now.
Yeah.
And he's like, I prefer the term master of the mystical arts. But the idea, and this actually gets into sort of
I kind of forgot about that line. Yeah.
So this actually gets into the sort of the first thing, which is what sorcerer means. And we were talking a little bit about this before we went live. But what does sorcerer mean in the context of the game? Well, the answer is not much. So here we have our first edition player's handbook, and it's a little hard to see because it's down here. But all sorcerer was the level title for being a level 9 wizard or a magic user, right?
Wait. So you were a magic user, and then you hit level?
No. Your class was magic user.
Got it.
But every level in first edition D&D had a title. So at level 1, you were a prestidigitator.
Oh, so
at level 2, you were an evoker. At level 3, you were a conjurer. At level 4, you were a theurgist. At level 5, you were a thaumaturgist. At level 6, you were a magician. At level 7, you were an enchanter. At level 8, you were a warlock. And level 9, you were a sorcerer. And I mean, you could basically
These are like 5 different classes.
Yeah, like now.
Yeah,
now
we need to think of a new class. Grab one of those titles.
I mean, that's probably what they've been doing for the last 50 years. Let's call it what it is, right? That is probably what they've been doing. So originally, this idea was that there was no distinction. Sorcerer was just another term for magic, and historically that's kind of been true.
That's really accurate,
the only thing we said was that wizard sort of brought up the idea of almost a more hermetic kind of way, Merlin, very like Gandalf, very like more
Studious.
like studious old man bent over. you know, even for me, you know, one of my favorite novels of all time, A Wizard of Earthsea, right? And these are good people who learned, you know, study spells. Sorcery was always sort of the evil thing,
Right.
You know, when we talk about the genre, sword and sorcery,
Right.
Sorcery equals bad guy,
Right. Conan was going to use the sword on the sorcerers.
right? To kill them. You know, the classic 80s.
They're like sort of like we dally in the dark arts type stuff.
yeah, dark arts, you know.
And like historically, independent role playing games, this is how sorcery was treated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at like we talked about before the stream, but like Christian
Mike's not-
mythos. Am I here?
There you go.
What? Why is it so
Get
not
in,
sensitive?
just
today?
get into it.
Does this sound better, guys?
Probably.
It just had this like evil connotation, like dark magic, right?
So like for like especially like when I look at like the D&D 5e, because I mean I only started in D&D 5e, like that's when I started. So like you got warlock and like in PF2 you got the witch and stuff like that. Is that just all like the sorcerer at that sense? Like in terms of, I'm talking about in terms of like
history.
history,
History is interesting.
like the witch, the warlock. That
Bob,
seems
I'm
like
gonna
actually
tell you
makes-
something, Bob. Magic's not real, so
Christmas is coming.
so like not from a game standpoint, but just from general history. It's interesting, and I wonder if this is where they got spontaneous versus prepared casting from, because one of the arguments, and keep in mind, these are people arguing over if we should burn someone at a stake or not.
Yes.
Right? One of the arguments was that, well, sorcery doesn't require knowledge, but witchcraft does. So you have to study witchcraft. And then there were like apparently all these debates about like, well, some witchcraft can be innate. And some sorcery you can study, right? But my point being is one of the arguments over is this sorcery, witchcraft, or wizardry is, well, how are you learning to use the power?
Yeah.
I just find it super interesting that people are making the distinction of,
Yeah.
did you study or
Yeah.
are you, you know, naturally a gifted person?
exactly. And so, you know, and so what we would see as we move on to the, you know, through other versions, like obviously AD&D second edition did not have, you had the wizard class group, which had the mage. Again, just another term for this. And let's
makes
also
sense.
be very clear, when we talk about wizards, when we talk about the historical roots of this, we're talking about Jack Vance here. Right, we're talking
talking about
about
what?
the Jack Vance. He's an author
Oh, okay.
who wrote a series of novels called the Dying Earth novels. And in these novels,
This is what D&D is actually based
this is what
A
D&D
lot
is
of people
actually
think
based
it's
on.
based off of like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Like it's actually.
Well, the magic at least is definitely based off of this.
Gygax was like, you know, yeah, I got some inspiration from Tolkien. Most of it was Vance.
So in this world, there were these insanely complex formulas of magical words and symbols, and that by reading them and studying them, it would literally imprint the magical energy into your mind. And then when you would speak the last few words of it, it would unleash it, and the magic would flow out of you. But in doing so, it would leave your mind. You would like forget it. Like you knew it, and then you forgot it. And that is the, I mean, that's what is,
literally what spellcasting
that's literally what spellcasting has been
Sounds like
based
a
on.
scroll.
Well, no, it's like a prepared slot.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So-
in the Dying Earth books too, what's great is the wizards refer to spells the way that like we as players refer to spells. Like they're named after the people who invented the spells. So like there'll be a character being like,
Tasha's hideous laughter.
Right.
did you prepare Tasha's hideous laughter today? Right? And like the wizards are like going back and forth about like what spells they should prepare, like that. Like it's just
Right,
I don't know.
right,
I think
because,
it's really cool.
right, because we're so used to in fictional form.
This also makes sense for like runes and stuff like that, right? Like wards of protection, is all
Sure.
sort of lettering that like
Right, well,
empowers stuff.
But we're used to magic always being very sort of loosey-goosey, you know, in when we read about it in movies or we read about it in books and see it in movies and TV shows, right? Like what
that could be a
spell
fun
is
stream.
what spell is Scarlet Witch casting?
Hard
She's
or
not.
soft magic
She just has
spells?
magic, you know. She's just able to summon energy and do stuff.
Well, Harry Potter though, they say the words, right?
They do, but also
it's
they
like a flick of
seemingly
a
can do
whisk.
anything, and they can do it at will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
As
and
long
then
as you did the
and
right
and then there's
thing.
even some characters who can cast spells without a wand and without saying anything. You know, so yeah, I mean, obviously the rules of magic in Harry Potter are probably pretty loose. But point is, even when we got to second edition, you know, they second edition had kits, and you know they included here a kit called the Amazon Sorceress, which you guys can't really see here. But long story short, this is just a wizard. You know, there's nothing that different about it.
Oh, it was in our title.
It's just another title. And then in second edition, you had the Al-Qadim, the Arabian Adventures. And they also had wizard kits. And their wizard kit was called the Sorcerer. And they even say, sorcerers are the mages of Zakhara. They represent the standard and most common form of wizards. In tune with the basic fabric of the real world, they understand the power of the elements. So Sorcerer in Al-Qadim, which is this sort of, Middle Eastern fantasy game, was still just wizards.
It was like an elemental
But it was
wizard?
like an elemental
Oh, okay.
wizard, right? So
like a slightly different spell list.
like a slightly different spell list, more
this is second edition, right?
This is still second edition,
so
yeah.
second
more-
edition had the groups like wizard.
Yeah.
But the classes underneath the group would be like illusionist, conjurer.
Correct,
it was
exactly.
specialization.
Actually, So whereas a traditional wizard would specialize by the type of magic, these people would specialize by the elemental of energy. And so really up until 2000, when third edition came out, there was nothing that we could really point to as being what we would consider to be today to be the modern day sorcerer, which is
Now, question, I don't want to interrupt, but was there anything else? Like wizard, was there the witch, the warlock? Was there other
no, none of
things?
that.
That's all Pathfinder.
But there was cleric, right? That was like the
that, but cleric
divine,
was divine, yeah, and
And
druid was
and then
druidic,
there was wizard,
and there was wizard,
and there was nothing really else.
and that's it. There's
Okay.
nothing else.
Wow,
There's nothing
okay.
else. In fact, I mean,
I'm playing, and I just everything. Like I have all these
right,
things.
and to be well, not to get off on a topic or a tangent here, but the fact of the matter is, one of the critiques I have of Pathfinder 2, but to a certain extent 5th edition as well, is I'm like, okay, witch, sorcerer, wizard, what's so different about those?
That was kind of my.
and
what I'm
I
getting
don't
to.
really know that there is that much of a difference, right?
It used to be like, oh, you're a mage, so you're a mage.
Right. Mage meant lightly armored, you're wearing robes, you cast spells. That's what mage meant. And now we have like 3 or 4 different classes that all kind of fit that niche.
Which sort of goes back to like what you talked about before. Like you could be like a fighter, and then your archetype is ranger, or your
Right.
archetype is this. It's like you could be magic user. My archetype is wizard, or my magic user. My archetype is sorcerer.
Sure.
You
And to be
you
fair,
could
that's
branch into those specifics.
yeah, and that's kind of how kits worked.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's how they work back in like second.
yeah. So what's interesting though is, and I might have to move this over. So I looked this up and I found this thing here. So this is on the Wayback Machine, because this is no longer on the Wizards of the Coast website. So this is an interview with Skip Williams in all of his mullet glory. And Skip Williams, AKA, used to be known as the Sage, who used to basically back before the internet, people would be like, my group was having a question about D&D, and they would write into Dragon Magazine, and Skip Williams was
Ask
the
the
guy,
DM.
would be the one who would answer the question.
okay.
But Skip Williams was one of the lead designers for Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. And they said, this month, our resident sage returns to the spotlight to rap with us about the new Dungeons & Dragons Sorcerer class. D&D designer Skip Williams gives us the lowdown on what separates the Sorcerer from the rest of the spellcaster classes. Question: when the D&D team looked at building a new spellcaster class, what gaps in the game were you trying to fill? Were there specific things you knew you wanted this class to bring to the game? Answer: mostly, we were considering the age-old complaint about wizards having to memorize spells each day. In the new game, they're not actually memorized; they're called prepared. But that's back in the day.
That was a complaint.
We considered a system of spell points, but those don't work terribly well. So we resurrected a concept I first played around with when I was in high school: a magic user type with a very small repertoire of spells that could be used freely. Was there any discussion about the name of the class, or was Sorcerer at the top of everybody's list from the start? Somebody threw out the name Sorcerer, and it stuck. That's literally as much. That's literally as much thought.
And that's why we have it today.
For players considering running a sorcerer, what things should they do differently from running another spellcaster? With a sorcerer, you choose spells once, and 3rd edition did not have retraining rules.
Sorry, Lazarus. It is Kane's chicken. It's amazing. Every time we have a show, I usually go and get it because I love it.
Yeah, right by our studio, they're literally they just
Across
built
the
it.
street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's delicious. It's
It
good
is.
stuff.
It is fantastic.
I don't even feel bad about eating it because it's so good.
With a sorcerer, you just choose spells once, so it's important to choose well. It just doesn't pay to select a spell that your character won't use on every adventure. And I think that's an interesting point, because
I like that pro and con.
I like that pro and con.
Yeah.
I know Smith said it's not his favorite. He'd rather have everything.
but
like-
that's
Well, to be
that
clear,
choice you get to make.
I want to be very clear. I don't think that's mechanically a problem.
Yeah.
I'm talking about personal preference.
Correct.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, somebody might like that pro and con.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
There's always a give and a take.
I love that you can play a game and have a difference of opinion over styles, I think stuff like that's great.
Yeah.
As long as it's not like one is clearly better than the other, right?
Right. And I think that's kind of where the problem is now, because there are some spells in Pathfinder 2 that are just so good that those are the spells you're going to take anyways.
Yep.
And so a wizard and a sorcerer spell list ends up looking very similar, you know?
100%.
But you know, his point is, though, which I like, which is, you know, as a sorcerer, you need to really be thinking about, like, what spells am I going to use all the time?
Yeah.
And there might be very useful spells that you're used to taking as a wizard, but you're not going to take as a sorcerer because you're like, well, it's a maybe spell. Okay. And that actually will get to one of my biggest gripes when we get to 3rd edition, which is like in 5 seconds, but it applies. It applies today. It applies to Pathfinder 2. You know, why should someone choose a sorcerer? If you're from the Blastum school of magic use, or you just have a short list of your favorite spells, the sorcerer is for you. Sorcerers are great for fire and support. You've got fireball and dimension. You've got all the fireball and dimension door spells you could want. The sorcerer class is good for developing a theme caster. So,
Sorcerer's up my alley because I only can remember a few spells anyway, so it's like it's perfect for me. Like I don't have to go through this whole book every time.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I do mostly agree with.
I like that book cover
with that. Yeah, so this is 3rd edition.
It has like a magic back, like the back of a magic card vibe to it.
Yeah, well, actually,
I do love the books.
So what's interesting about this book is that's a real book that they made. They created it. And then that's a picture of the real book.
They took the picture of the book and put it as the cover.
Yeah. So
Wow.
the picture, the cover of the book is a picture of the cover of the real book.
That's pretty cool. I wouldn't have guessed that, but I was like,
I've actually seen like the carving of that and the DMG, which were both real books that were, you know, made and carved.
It's pretty cool.
So the Player's Handbook, 3rd edition, 3.0, 2000, introduces us to the sorcerer. But in my research, I discovered something very interesting, which is, now, when I think sorcerer, we think spontaneous casting, doesn't prepare or memorize their spells ahead of time.
Yes.
They have a limited pool of spells that they can cast multiple times per day.
Yes.
And this is not the first instance in D&D where this appeared. Interestingly, the first place the sorcerer appeared was actually in Baldur's Gate 2.
The video game?
The video game, which used AD&D 2nd edition. It came out in like 99. But they were working with Wizards,
of
and
course.
And this was under development. So they had like sort of an early access to it. So if you played Baldur's Gate 2, there was a class that was pretty much the 3rd edition sorcerer. It was a spontaneous caster who had a limited number of spell slots or a limited number of spells in their repertoire, but they could cast them multiple times. And it was really interesting to me because it is, for all intents and purposes, it is an AD&D 2nd edition sorcerer. They were just sort of borrowing the sorcerer from.
I wonder if it was popular.
I
didn't play.
I have no idea, but I do know.
I don't think it's a great mechanic to sell your fucking game.
I do know that I was looking at BG3 class stats, and the sorcerer is very low in BG3.
Meaning like usage, like people using it?
Yeah, like they've done like usage stats over like what is the most popular class.
Interesting. Is that just like maybe a D&D thing? I don't know much with the D&D sorcerer.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know 5th edition well enough to really answer that question.
Yeah.
But in any case, you know, the sorcerer comes in, and right off the bat, the sorcerer is a tough sell. So the sorcerer as a class is very boring. Okay, like let's take a look here. See this here, special, this thing here in the middle.
Yeah, what is that?
This is everything that they get as a
Nothing?
class. They get nothing.
No, what did other things
this is
get?
when they
What
first
did
started.
other things get? So I got context.
Not as much.
Well, I'm just saying, like, did the wizard get some sweet
Like
stuff?
here, this is what
Actually,
the
Wizard got
this is what the
some
rogue got, right?
This is 3.0.
We had a tip from Lazarus Dark who says
Oh.
Smith's next Kane's dinner is on me.
Nice.
Thank you, Laz Dark. Actually, Laz, it could be this Kane's dinner because I bought it for the channel,
that's the other nice
and
thing
so
too.
you're just
Derek always
basically you
picks up
basically
for it.
just pay it. But you know, a rogue picked up sneak attack and evasion and uncanny dodge, and even a wizard picked up bonus feats. This is a bonus feat. That's a bonus feat. That's a bonus feat. To take like meta magic feats. So not only did the sorcerer pay, he didn't get anything, but also the sorcerer got his spells one level later than everybody else. So you think of getting
So it was like worse?
so you think of getting Fireball,
Yeah.
which is a 3rd rank or 3rd level spell. You think of getting that at level 5.
Yes.
The sorcerer got
big
it at
level.
level 6.
I feel like
They got everything was one level delayed.
But it was all the same power, right?
It was all the same power. Well, it was a new class.
They're afraid.
And they were afraid.
Yeah.
Of what.
Casting at will, anything.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the Sorcerer was fine in 3rd edition. I think a lot of people had fun with it. I think it was, we had several notable sorcerers, Flaren and some other people. But the fact of the matter is, this comes from a time and a place where D&D was being thought of very differently.
What do you mean?
Well, it was a resource game. And the fact is unlike in Pathfinder 2, okay, in Pathfinder 2, a wizard gets 3 spells slots per per level, per rank. I'm trying to use the new terms. But they have an ability to use their ring bounded item to restore one of those spell slots from every level. So they essentially get 4 spells. A sorcerer gets 4 spells.
3 plus bloodline.
In 3rd edition, a sorcerer got 6.
So it got more spells.
He got more spells.
Interesting.
So a wizard would cap out at having only 4 spells, and a sorcerer would get 6 spells. So 50% more across every single level of the game. So they had essentially, 50% more spell slots than a wizard did.
Interesting.
And because the name of the game
it's
was
funny that that's the case, because the idea was that you didn't
by
prepare
the way-
as many, but you
by the
had
way-
that many.
By the way, this is a time when there were no infinite cantrips.
Yeah.
Okay, you had your spells and then you were done. Even the 0th level spells were limited per day.
Yeah.
Now, so you had 6 spell slots, and you could take 6
Well,
different
no.
spells?
No.
That's what I was getting at. I
No.
was like, oh, so you could just pick a bunch of different
No,
stuff.
in fact, the most you ever could, at the beginning part of the game, you had 2.
So the wizard was beneficial in that.
Well, the wizard.
respect.
Well, not only that, the wizard might have 10 spells in his
Yeah.
book, and he could pick any combination of those up to 4.
Yeah.
Whereas the sorcerer is casting 6,
But
but he only knows like 2 or 3.
Okay. So that's for that weird, the interesting trade-off.
And I
comes
should
in.
also point out that in 3rd edition, your higher ability scores also gave you more bonus spell slots. So it wasn't uncommon at high level for sorcerers to have 7 or even 8 slots per level. So they cast a ton, but resources were very important. And that meant that like a character, because again, when a wizard ran out of spells, there was no cantrips, there was no electric arc, there was no ray of frost. If a wizard ran out, they were shooting
pull out a
people. They were
crossbow.
shooting people with a crossbow. Or
Here's
trying
my
to
staff.
hit them with their staff, and it was pathetic, and it was sad, and it didn't
That
function
was
at all.
actually one of the other reasons people liked 3rd edition sorcerers, is because they had a little bit better weapon proficiency.
Yes, so wizards could only use like dagger, staff, club. Sorcerers got a simple weapon proficiency, so they could use like a spear or something a little not.
kinda cool.
In fact, the
Not as
iconic
horrible.
art is a sorcerer with a spear.
Yes. Do we have a picture of Hennet? Yeah, there's Hennet.
is.
There's Hennet with his spear and a crossbow. Everything a sorcerer
That
needs.
is a low-level sorcerer right there.
Everything that a sorcerer needs.
I don't think of that when I think of
But
sorcerer.
we'll also talk here a little bit about the legacy of these classes, which is going into 3rd edition D&D. So going through the 80s, going into the 90s where I was really playing, there was an accepted understanding. The wizard is for the advanced player. The wizard is the pros, class. It's not for kids. It's not for newbies. Magic is difficult. Magic is, whatever. The sorcerer, I think, was an attempt to do 2 things. Number 1, novels, movies, TV. No one, even in 2000, nobody knew who the hell Jack Vance was.
No.
So
No, not at all.
the fire and forget system was already kind of like, what is this? What do you mean I have to prepare these spells? I just want to be able to summon magical energy and destroy it. Secondly, the fantasy of the wizard. The studious old man or woman, alone studying over books and, having the very like bushy eyebrows or whatever.
Just not cool enough.
Right? That didn't appeal to people. But like, what about these characters from fantasy that are like well springs of energy, right? There's even novels. You could blame this on this, right? There were novels from the Forgotten Realms, like what's her name? Chandrel Spellheart or whatever her name is, right? Who could summon the Spellfire.
Yes.
And it was like she was just channeling this raw magic. And I think that modern
When
fantasy.
did all like Harry Potter books and movies come out?
Well, I think the first movie came out around 2000.
Yeah, so the books were obviously well before
Yeah,
that.
the books were out like
And they were very popular, weren't they? I didn't
Yeah.
really know stuff until the movies came out.
When did Harry Potter?
Cybersmith says, looking forward to the VOD. Worth noting, Sorcerer's bone most synergy thanks to charisma. If a lot of enemies in the campaign have poor will saves. Yeah, we'll get to the Pathfinder 2 Sorcerer. Just a fantastic.
First book was 97.
97.
First movie was 2001.
Yeah, there you go.
So I wonder if the book's popularity, people are like, man, the Harry Potter people are just saying that over, and they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I think they were looking to create a class that was a little bit more user quote unquote friendly.
I get it. That'd be the class I'd be gravitating to,
and appeals to the people who go, I just want to blast all day and just cast spells over and over again. So the Sorcerer kind of came in and shook something up. But now this is again where I was saying this is my gripe that I was holding on, waiting on to. The problem is, okay, it's using the same spell list as the wizard.
Yep.
And you still have slots.
Yep.
Everything is still codified. I know Fireball and Magic Missile. So those are the spells I can cast. I'm still not like creating magic. I'm just basically a wizard who gets more slots, and I still have to prepare my spells. I just only do it once.
Yeah.
Basically, it's reusing the same system to create a slightly different experience, but I don't feel like the Sorcerer, to me, really delivered on the fantasy of being that.
Great.
Would it be too complicated to
maybe.
hold brand new spell list, basically?
So, and it's funny because Skip mentioned this, and it's kind of where my head goes. I hate point systems for spells in D&D. I always have hated them. I always thought they were clunky and convoluted. I actually probably would have gone in that direction. Specifically, if I'd been in Skip's shoes, I probably would have reused the old psionic tech and rebuild that as a sorcerer, exactly because of that reason. Like I feel like it's a hack of existing mechanic that doesn't do enough to establish a new class identity, and it still falls short of what you actually want the identity to be.
Right. Yeah, it just didn't. I will say this, having played 3rd edition, there just didn't feel like there was enough of a difference between being a sorcerer and being a wizard.
Yeah, and that might be its own thing. I mean, in terms of just the spells, I mean, in my thought process is the spells exist in the world, and so there's only so many spells that can be pulled out of the ether to be able to do. So the wizard can do it, the sorcerer can do it, the druid can do it, certain ones, but
sure.
But yeah, mechanically, there should be something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like your idea, right? That Fireball isn't something that men created. Fireball is written into the energy of the cosmos. The Fireball spell was put there by, Eru Iluvatar into the fabric of magic. And, wizards have to decode the matrix, in order to be able to access it. And sorcerers just grab the energy, Right. But the idea that
sorcerers are like living word.
Yeah.
But it gets a little silly when you start thinking about all these, yes, and then the great overgod put fins into feet into the fabric of the universe.
And clown shoes.
And clown shoes. And if that was the case, by the way, it really goes to why creating a spell was so damn difficult.
True.
Right? Because you're like uploading it to reality.
To the Matrix.
Yeah, you're uploading it to the Matrix.
Every deployment straight into production.
Every deployment straight into production. Yes. Like, we don't fuck around. So okay. And so, it's time, as it always is here on this channel when Aaron is here, to get 4th edition Apologetic.
Yes.
So we get to 4th edition. And Sorcerer, the big new class of 3rd edition, is not in the 4th edition Player's Handbook.
So do you know if it was like people didn't like it?
No, they cut out a lot of classes from PF2.
I mean, to be fair, neither was the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Neither was the Druid.
The Sorcerer was on the docket to do, just not in the first book. They wanted the first book to be iconic classes. And the Sorcerer by nature wasn't iconic.
So
it just showed up.
That's fair.
Also, to be clear, they wanted to put in their new, which it kind of come out in 3rd edition, right? Was the Warlock. The kind of like the Warlock, ironically, the Warlock was ironically kind of getting back to what the historical Sorcerer was. The Warlock is the dark, evil spellcaster who calls upon powers that man was not meant to know and, has dark curses. So they put that into 4th. I mean, there was a class in 3rd edition that did that called the Warlock. But then there was a 4th edition class called the Warlock, which was in the Player's Handbook. But in Player's...
It's sort of like the occult.
It's sort of like the occult.
PF2, yeah.
So in Player's Handbook 2, though, we get the Sorcerer. And for my money, this is the best distinction, because I'm going to complain about this when we get to 5th edition, and I'm going to complain about it when we get to Pathfinder 2. I just complained about it in 3rd edition. The
Are
sorcerer,
you going to say anything positive about the sorcerer today?
the sorcerer and the wizard, to me, are indistinguishable.
Okay.
They do the same thing. They cast the same spells.
I mean,
Hell, in 3rd edition, it was called the Sorcerer Wizard spell list. Every spell that a sorcerer had, a wizard could have.
I mean, if you would have asked me, all I would have told you the difference was the wizard had to learn them, and the sorcerer was born with them.
And that's basically it. But even then, from a player perspective, you're casting Fireball. I'm casting Fireball. We're both. You cast it 4 times a day. I can cast it 6 times a day.
Yeah.
You know, and like, but you could change it up if you wanted to, and I can't.
Well, I could do a level earlier in 3rd edition.
But 4th edition brought us roles. And this meant that the classes need to fit into these ideas of, are you a defender? Are you a striker? Are you a leader? Are you a controller? And the wizard, obviously, was in Player's Handbook 1 because it's iconic. And they made the wizard a controller. So the wizard, being from the arcane class, you know, had all these abilities to, you know, target multiple enemies at once. But it was more about locking them down, you know, ice around their feet,
Debuffs.
webs, debuffs, slowing them, you know, debuffs, locking them in place, controlling them. The sorcerer is also an arcane class, but the sorcerer is a striker.
Yeah, power.
And this means that, for my money, the sorcerer in 4th edition is the truest sort of expression of that. I want to be a blaster caster.
Agreed.
Because this is literally, in 4th edition, your class would get mechanics that would make you deal a ton of damage. And so this, to me, put the wizard and the sorcerer on very different paths. Now, yes, they were both arcane.
But the play styles were different.
But the play styles were different. And more importantly, they had radically different spells or powers, because that's the way 4th edition worked.
So when you're doing your player creation, you actually have to think about that. How am I going to approach this? Do I want to be the blaster caster? Do I want to be the defender, or sorry, the controller?
Right.
And so not just
which like
do I want to
slight
learn
flavor.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they were very different.
Interesting.
And so the sorcerer in 4th edition, we're not going to go super into it, but I mean, to be clear, a lot of things that we kind of have established here before, striker, you channel powerful magical energy through your body, exerting control over wild arcane magic to blast foes. Now, you lean towards...
When 4E came out?
2008. This would have come out 2009.
I'm trying to think like what was going around that time. The thing of this like power like
No, I mean,
emerging from you or anything.
I think the Ryan says anime.
I probably ain't wrong.
Well, not only that,
Was
but
DBZ? No, that was earlier.
Yeah, but also I think if you look at the way that most, like, whether you're playing Diablo or Diablo 2, if you look at the way that most wizards, caster types worked in video games, they were damage dealers.
Yeah.
You know, they dealt a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, they play a lot more like sorcerers than they do like traditional wizards.
Exactly.
Very few games have the traditional wizard.
Yeah, and so
it's hard.
And so while the wizard class in 4th edition got access to things like slow and wall of fog and, all this stuff, the sorcerer did not. The sorcerer got a bunch of damage dealing effects and spells.
Now, was the 4E sorcerer more popular than the 4E wizard?
It's a great question. It did come out late.
And the reason I say is because people start going, man, the blaster caster is so much fun. The wizard is kind of boring being the controller. And then all of a sudden they start to push that in a certain direction.
I still think the wizard's cooler, but
I'll just ask. I don't know because I didn't play it.
So in chat, we had somebody here who, let me see who it was. It was, let's see. George said, I had a white dragonborn sorcerer in 4E who concentrated in cold spells. And fun to play and could cold breath as well. When Moonlit Mongrel says, when I started playing 4E, all of my players were dragonborns or tieflings. That sounds about right. And again, we'll see this in 5th edition, but this is also where this idea of the bloodline mattering came in
4E.
Yeah, in 3rd edition, you were just a sorcerer. Now, it was kind of FBT, right? Like, oh, maybe you have some angelic blood.
Yeah, because it's coming from within you.
Or maybe you have the blood of dragons, but it was kind of flavor. It didn't do anything. In 4th edition, we had the first time this idea of what is your spell source. And in the first book, you had dragon magic and wild magic.
Oh, that's in the 5e one too.
And that is exactly what's in the same one as the 5e.
I was like, I know that
They
one.
literally took that and they did that still in the same thing. So, but a dragon mage, their primary stat was strength.
That sounds sweet.
You know, because they are literally like physically channeling the magical
sounds so
energy.
much cooler than the wizard.
But and to be fair, Aaron said, you know, he still prefers the wizard, and you say it sounds.
That's just our playstyle.
No, it's your
That's
playstyle.
playstyle.
But
Yeah.
what I appreciate about it is it is a flavor feel, but it's also a mechanical difference.
Yeah.
And Aaron could be a wizard. You know, Aaron could be an Eladrin wizard, and you could be a dragonborn sorcerer, and it wouldn't feel like you guys are, you know, stepping
the same space.
stepping
Yeah,
each
yeah.
other's spots.
Yeah,
because
because we'd be at the table going like, Smith, like, are you gonna be able to like do this over here and slowly see what's down? Bob, are you gonna be able to hit that guy over there with
Right.
that big spell? Like, yeah, I think I could do that. You
right. And what
Because you have your rolls,
right
which is
now, to be
before he
fair,
did.
because they were a sorcerer, they were arcane. So what made the sorcerer so unique as a striker, as opposed to a class like the rogue or the ranger, is the rogue and the ranger tons of damage, but barbarian tons of damage, but they are essentially attacking with a weapon.
Yeah, it's a bludgeoning
So
or piercing or something.
It's against usually a single foe, whereas the sorcerer had breaths and line, and explosions, right? So the sorcerer was doing a bunch of damage to a bunch of people, and so that's kind of what made them pretty cool. So again, the sorcerer really kind of, in my opinion, just carves out this niche for itself.
Now, do you think they did it? You thought this was the best they did. Now, do you think it was good?
I mean, I think the sorcerer is a fantastic class.
I'm saying, you were saying that you have your gripes about it in PF2 and 5e and et cetera, but 4e did it the best.
Yes, 4E did the best.
But the best is
Oh.
amazing. Like they knocked it out. Like wizard versus sorcerer separation was great.
Well, yeah, the separation is great. It's a fun class. It's an effective class.
They didn't overlap enough, right? They felt like they were too distinct.
Oh, they're very distinct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Without playing it, I'm just trying
about the only thing that you can say is that they're both arcane based. So that means, fire damage, cold damage, AoEs, explosions, lines, breaths, cones. So again, it's there's some similarities there, but to me, the sorcerer really stands out here.
Okay.
And again, that it's a flavor thing, but for me, what I thought was really interesting is how they took it in this different direction.
Okay.
Which then brings us to 5th edition, where we went back to the same. So 5th edition, because it was an apology for everything that 4th edition was.
That's correct.
Yeah.
5th edition came in and said, we're sorry. We know we changed things. Our bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the sorcerer and the wizard use the exact same spell list again. There. You happy? Everybody good? Can we?
Were they? I don't know.
I mean, people. It's the most popular role-playing game of all time. So you tell me. Just like before, you have the bard spell list, the druid spell list, the paladin spell list, and then you have the sorcerer, the warlock, and the wizard spell list, but the sorcerer and the wizard spell list are basically exactly the same. And now you have a sorcerer again who can cast things like web, suggestion, misty step, dark vision, hold monster, dominate person, right? All of these, to me,
I feel like
wizardy spells.
They could have literally just limited the spell list, right? They didn't have to really go back into the
Well, no, they
roles.
did, because they had to completely revert back to 3rd edition, because that was when they were making money.
Right.
And so, that's...
This was another thing I actually liked about 4th edition too.
Now, we'll talk about 5th edition Sorcerer a little bit more, because they did do some cool things to it with the spell point system, I thought. But yeah.
I was just going to say, again, this is I like it mechanically. I don't know how I feel about it narratively. 4th edition moved all of the utility spells into rituals.
Most of them.
A lot of them.
Because there's a lot of utility wizard spells that are utility wizards, levitate, fly.
Sure. I'm just saying, like
rope
making
trick.
a mansion, road trick, all that crap, right?
Right. Like the true, you would never use this in combat.
Right. And now in 4th edition as a sorcerer, you're no longer locked out from those because it's not 3rd edition where you have to spend one of your limited slots learning a spell that you might cast once a day or once a week, right? You can just pick up these rituals, right? And so in that way, it kind of diminished that difference a little bit from the historical view of the sorcerer. I think 4th edition sorcerers and wizards played better because of the distinction and everything that you mentioned. Right. So in general, I like it, but I did think it was interesting how they changed that historically.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. This is something that bothers me in 2nd edition. I'm sorry. It bothers me in Pathfinder 2nd edition. It bothered me in AD&D 3rd edition. Or sorry, D&D 3rd edition. Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition.
It would bother you in AD&D Baldur's Gate edition.
It would bother me in AD&D. Did you download Baldur's Gate 2?
Well, I wanted to see how they, took a 3rd edition class and put it in the 2nd edition D&D. So You know, I just installed Baldur's Gate
I feel like
real quick.
I feel like we need like a "That's so Smith" like a thing that pops up on the
You
screen.
know, I got people saying like, "Oh man, it's crazy when I'm playing." My players on VTT, they're playing fucking games. I see it in the Discord. I'm on a fucking live
I'm
stream,
at work.
and I'm doing a live stream, and this guy's fucking downloading video games.
Yeah, it was relevant for the topic. So
Well,
But I'm already level 2.
level 7, but
So what I was going to say is this is something that irks me to no end, which is you go through this whole rigmarole of sorcerers have a limited access, and then they have all these spell slots, and they make this big deal about it and how they're different from wizards, and then they let them cast from scrolls.
yeah,
And I don't like that.
I agree.
Why should a sorcerer isn't about magical writing?
How does that sorcerer even read that?
How does a sorcerer even read that scroll? Why does a sorcerer get to use a scroll? That to me is such a wizard thing. And not only that,
Don't they let a lot of people do that?
oh, I mean, scroll spam has been a thing since 3rd edition.
Yeah.
Because you're like, hey, I'm a sorcerer. And it's like, okay,
Wait,
well,
did they do that in 4th edition? You could do scrolls.
no,
with
4th
sorc-
edition didn't have that.
They didn't have scrolls at all.
4th edition
or-
actually went back to like 2nd and 1st edition D&D, where scrolls were something that anyone could use, like scrolls of protection, that sort of thing.
Oh, so it wasn't like scroll fireball.
Yeah,
No.
it was more like a literal magic scroll that anyone could read, and if you knew the words, you could instill a magical
Oh,
effect.
okay.
Yeah.
But like I'm talking about just like, oh, hey, like in Pathfinder 2, you're like, oh, you know, my sorcerer doesn't have all those spells because I don't have access to it. Oh yeah, but I got a bunch of scrolls of it. All right, I'm good.
I'm trying to think.
It's kind of
Wasn't there a
Yeah.
restriction where like the spell, you had to have the spell in your repertoire,
No, you just has to be on your class list,
even in 3rd edition?
even in 3rd edition.
Was that true for everything,
Yeah.
even like crafting?
No, because when you craft, you have to provide a casting of that spell.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for scroll use, you just needed to be on your class.
It needed to be
list.
on your class list. Even a wizard who didn't have that spell in their book
Yeah.
could cast a scroll
Yeah.
if it was on their list. Now, if it was on a cleric list only, then a sorcerer couldn't cast it.
Right.
But if it was on the Sorc
Wizard
wizard,
PF2 sorcerer who took crossbow.
right, and
or a scroll trickster or trick magic item, whatever it is.
and
Yeah.
and again, and I
Cast
feel
anything I want.
right, and so this thing that is supposed to, number one, thematically, it just feels like such an epic fail, right? Because it's like it's magical
Doesn't even make
writing.
sense.
It doesn't even make sense. But then not only that, the whole shtick of them is, you know, that they are power incarnate.
Yeah, the
you know,
dragon gave me this ability.
the dragon power. And now I'm pulling out an old musty piece of paper and I'm reading the words.
Or
of-
you're finding one, right? Like the entire campaign, you're like running around, like you're like, you know, let's say you're like a modern person, right, who loves anime. So you're playing an 8-year-old girl who's descendant of a dragon god, casting fireballs, almost accidentally. Oops, tee, I blew it up. You know,
Sounds like a lot of animes.
100%. Yeah. And then like you're in some dungeon, and, like you kill a lich or whatever, and like the fire's like, what's this? And pulls out a scroll, and the 8-year-old girl's like, give me that. Yes. Tasha's hideous laughter, of course.
I'm trying to think, but like almost, like, there's no real restraint at all. You talked about the back in 4E, anyone could just cast the scrolls, but the scrolls were limited.
yeah, the
The
scrolls.
scrolls are very different.
But
than
anyone
they
could.
are
They
now.
were
cast.
very
Okay,
different.
so that's I'm trying to think of like.
Think of
everyone's.
a scroll is more like a potion.
I feel like
for
in
me.
our games, everyone's casting scrolls.
Of course.
Of course.
Well, okay, so now I'm going to get on a separate topic, which is just the commoditization of scrolls.
Oh, jeez. Commoditization of magic in general.
yeah, but
Class feature.
But
I mean,
but you know
how far do you want to take this one?
the introduction of trick magic item,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all of these things,
Which really just comes from use magic device.
right? Which is a 3rd editionism,
Right.
you know, and so suddenly, you know, you can just anybody can use them, and it
Yeah,
was
now that you say that, I mean, I know I had scrolls like of magic missile and other things
Yeah.
that I even I had in my repertoire, but like I was this dragon sorcerer that like sometimes transformed into a dragon. That was my whole stick, but like somehow I was casting scrolls.
right.
Now, I'm like thinking like that was really weird.
Yeah, it's just really weird, and
But I
again,
didn't think about it at the time.
like,
I just wanted to cast powerful things.
you know, and not to get into it, but like it's a little bit different. I think they were a little bit different here. Let me see if it's right. Yeah, like wizards in 4th edition, wizards or all the classes had weapons that got like +1, +2, +3, +4. You know, like you would in your +4 sword. Well, in 4th edition, a wizard had a +3 wand. Right, because they attacked with their spells. So the same way that fighters get magical weapons,
Another thing I love, by the way.
wizards got magical wands.
Ooh,
But
+4 stat.
wizards got wands, rods, and staves.
Okay.
Sorcerers used daggers and staffs. So they were overlapped on the staff.
Yeah.
But the idea was, like, even fundamentally, it was still different. Like, I don't hate the idea of them, like, being able to use a magical staff and channel their energy through it and produce an effect. That's cool, because that's not the same thing as I have unlimited access to infinite repertoire of scrolls,
Right.
and I'm reading them
No,
magically.
the power comes from within
The power. Well, no, because
Then you
it,
said-
Also,
power
fourth
from-
edition literally goes, you're trained in this implement.
yeah,
So the sorcerer did learn how to use the staff.
yeah. I guess what it ends up coming
But is
from.
the power in the scroll? Is that what we're saying?
Well-
It's from
well,
the words, I guess.
Third
in the
edition
scroll.
basically just went, hey, if you're a spellcaster, you could use scrolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those things where like this is the problem of hacks, and spontaneous casting is a hack, right?
Right.
That
It
made
is.
sense before, because literally every form of magic was something that you learned to do. It was all prepared casting.
Mm-hmm.
Clerics, druids, wizards, bards spent time learning how to use magic.
Oh, even druids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when I think of druids, I think of like innate primal.
Right, it's not. They had to be trained. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, there was
Like
the whole,
clerics and
as you know
wizards, I
from
feel
our,
like
as you know from
more
our
written,
druid
but-
stream, right? There was the whole druid council and the druid
Yeah.
circle,
Yeah.
and you had to be part of the organization. They had a separate language that they learned amongst their and secret
Which is
druid
druid.
school.
Yeah.
And so it made sense that
Interesting.
scrolls would just be everyone can use scrolls if you're a caster, right? And they just kind of like continued the tradition, but in third edition they changed one of the assumptions there, which is now you could be a caster that just does it from the blood. Well, what about these other mechanics? Yeah, they work.
I don't want to take that away. Something. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of like. Yeah.
So so again, so what I was going to say is, at least in fifth edition, we saw the sorcerer in third edition was literally just, I have no special powers. I just get my spells, the same spells a wizard gets. I just get more of them.
I think they got a little bit better. In 3.5.
So a couple, yeah. So I don't think they did. I think they might have gotten like a free meta magic feat. I don't remember, but what they did with sorcerers in fifth edition is they gave them these sorcery points, which was supposed to sort of represent their raw magic, their sort of innate fundamental power.
Is their progression chart any different than the wizards?
It is. I don't remember. Let's see here. They are 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you're right. 3.5. They didn't really get anything.
Yeah.
They got something from there.
And then a wizard
It looks very similar. Just glancing back and forth on the page.
is 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It is the same.
Yeah.
It's the same in fifth edition.
Yeah. So fifth
Just the
edition was more
cantrips.
of like,
The cantrips change.
let's make the class different versus the progression.
Right. It's still the same progression. It's still the same spells, basically. But what you do get is these sorcerer points, these sorcery points, and you start with 2, but you end up getting like 20 by the end of the game. And you can spend your sorcery points to swap or to create new spell slots.
Cool.
So you can kind of gain more flexibility, right, than you would normally have. And you can also convert your spell slots that you didn't use into sorcery points.
Nice.
When
but-
can you do that?
I think you get it from second level.
No. Like you can do it anytime, or like only before, like the start of the day, or.
As a bonus action on your turn.
Oh,
So you could do it and then cast your spell.
Well, that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
yeah,
Yes.
that's kind
That
of cool.
gets back into that flexibility.
Right.
Yeah.
This feels a little bit more flexible. So
I mean, it's called flexible casting.
it is called flexible casting.
checks out.
And as a bonus action, you can spend 1 spell slot and gain a number of sorcery points equal to the spell slot's level. Now, of course, a 5th level spell slot costs 7 sorcery points. So you can't.
Sure.
You lose. You can't. You
pay for that, but it's fine,
Yeah. There's not infinite back and
And you
forth.
can't go higher than 5th.
It doesn't look like you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
At
they don't
least-
let
at
you.
least- at least in this
They don't let you
core
get to
rulebook.
the very highest level spells. But the other thing that you can do is you pick up meta magic feats, and these are not feats in 5th edition. They are
Right.
meta magic class features that are.
This is the sorcerer.
This is the sorcerer shtick. They only
Yeah.
get this, and they get these abilities to, distance spell. Now we're used to reach spell from Pathfinder 2nd edition, right, which is a meta magic thing. Takes an extra action and it adds 30 feet to the range. Well, distance spell costs 1 sorcery point, and it doubles it. So if the range was 100 feet, it's now 200 feet, and vice versa.
I mean, I like the part where it says if it has the range of touch, it becomes range of 30 feet.
To be fair, Pathfinder Second Edition does the same thing.
I mean, I like that part. Like
Now,
that's always pretty
the
cool.
other thing,
What's awesome about this is you're doing this in play.
right?
You're going, I need reach right now on this exact spell. I'm going to spend an extra point and get
Right.
my double range fireball.
And to be fair, that is something that unfortunately, actually it's spell shape now. No, we're talking about 5th edition. We can still call it meta magic. But like one of my problems with Pathfinder 2nd edition system is the meta magic system is really cool. I love the idea of pay an extra action, basically turn your 2-action
I
spell
think that part's great.
into a 3. It's just the result you get for it is not worth it.
Correct. And you're burning a feat for it.
And it burns a feat.
What's great about this?
Well, technically, I mean, you're not burning a feat here, but it is one of your class features.
It's a class feature, but it's baked in. So as a sorcerer, you just get it. I mean, it feels bad for everyone else because they don't get meta magic.
Right.
But like, this is a great way to have meta magic.
Right. And then twin spell is what Pepper says. And yeah, twin spell is when you cast a spell that targets only one creature and does not have a range of self, you can spend a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level. So expensive.
Yeah.
To target a second creature in range. So, you cast your instant, basically you get to double up the value of slot.
Killer.
And then I should also point out that at 20th level, of course, because not that it matters, you get back 4 sorcery points every time you take a short rest. So it's like, in theory, it's like infinite reservoir, but whatever. But like 4th edition, you had 2 origins in the book. You had a draconic bloodline and you had a wild magic bloodline. And these gave you an additional thing that you could do with your sorcery points. So the 5th edition sorcerer is kind of like you could either view it as a best of both worlds or the worst of both worlds. Where
That's 5th edition in a nutshell.
Yeah, it is kind of 5th edition in a nutshell. Like where you still have this same sort of spell slot progression system, right? But you also have this kind of flexible spell point system, kind of,
I like what they were going for here.
But at least, I give them an A for effort in that respect. I don't know how well this delivers because I never played the sorcerer, but spellcasting in 5th edition is a little weird to me.
Well, that's a great point, right? Because it's one of those things where I have mixed feelings on. As a mechanic, I actually like the 5th edition method of spellcasting, which is it's a mix of prepare and spontaneous. You prepare your repertoire for the day. And then you cast out of that however you want. And this is for every 5th edition character. So you're a sorcerer and you have access to, what are 5 arcade spells, like that is your repertoire, right? But if you're a wizard and you have access to 20 spells and you can prepare 3.
Well, the other way to say
those go in your repertoire, and then you cast out of that, whatever combination.
Yeah, the way to actually describe it in Pathfinder 2 terms is
it's the
you have a
one class.
Well, that's from Pathfinder 1, but the Arcanist. But what you basically do is you have a repertoire that you build every day.
Yeah.
And all of the spells that you put into your repertoire, which you can change every day, are signature spells.
Yes.
Because you could, if I put Cure Light Wounds into Cure Wounds into my spell repertoire for the day.
Yeah.
And I have 1st level spell slots, 2nd level spell slots, 3rd level spell slots. I can cast it at any of those, any mixture of times a day. So it's really, really infinite. And by the way, this is before 5th edition. Dragon's
that's
Delve.
like spells known on this sorcerer?
So spells known is how many spells do you get to pick from? Like that's the distinction. And for a wizard, spells known is what's in your book.
Right.
For a sorcerer, you only have that many spells in your book. That's what you can pick from when you prepare for the day. So they are still in theory limited.
Yeah, they're still limited more than a
but
wizard,
they can cast from every one of the, they can cast from all of the spell slots and So I like this sorcerer in 5th edition.
A super chat
better.
thing that came up too.
Oh, hey, Josh. I listen to your channel all the time. I never catch you live. Keep up the good content. Well, thank you so much. You're here live with us now. Appreciate it. I mean, so long story short, I like the 5th edition sorcerer more than I like the 3rd edition sorcerer. A lot. I like that they're trying to do something different. And the sorcery points, I'm sure, seem like they're probably pretty cool. And again, too, my 5th edition Caro pay knowledge is very limited. Leland is saying it's why the Bloodwell Vial is near mandatory for Sorks. It lets you recover 5 sorcery points on a short rest.
Yeah, I don't even know what any of that meant. So,
well, it's a magic item that gives you back 5 of those points every time you take a short rest. I've also heard that, like there's broken, Sorkadins and people
Yeah,
multi-class into it.
I
and
think every class somehow breaks if you add a little bit of warlock to it, or vice
Warlock
versa.
or Paladin or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's pretty cool. And I like that, again, they took from 4th edition the same ideas. Like from 4th edition, they took the ideas of the bloodline being the kind of theme of your powers.
Yeah.
And they took the wild magic and the dragon, which is the same we had in 4th edition. And then from 3rd edition, they took the same idea and concept of here are all your spell slots. You just get them, and you get them like, a little bit more restricted than the wizard, but it's the same list. But then they added this whole idea of like, I'm going to have this sorcery point power system to kind of tap a little bit into that whole flexible power point system that, mana point, MP, whatever system that you want to call.
Yeah, which is cool.
So
Yeah, I'd probably put this second.
yeah. And then obviously I think to me still the 4th edition.
Is
first. And so that brings us to this crazy.
Actually, I did want to say before we jump right into that, I was probably thinking this. Yeah, so the Pathfinder 1 Sorcerer
Right. Which
got a little bit more. They're a little bit closer to the PF2 Sorcerer.
I could bring up Pathfinder 1 on Archives of Nethys.
Yeah, because they got bloodline powers, spells, feats. Like their bloodline played a lot harder in the class.
God, there's so many classes in Pathfinder 1.
But they still shared, yeah,
Jesus.
so many. But they still shared the progression of the 3.0 Sorcerer. For example, getting 3rd level spells at level 6.
At level 6, yeah. So they still were a level behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
I still feel this is probably a better version of the 3.0 one just because they get something.
What's interesting, by the way, is you can start to see the transference away from it because 3rd edition, right, came out brand new. And you were a sorcerer. You cast from your raw blood. But you still needed bat guano to cast fireball.
Yeah.
Right? You still needed a pinch of dust or sand to cast sleep spell.
Do they get issue materials in 3.5?
No, it was a feat that came out later, but you had to burn a feat on it.
Okay, but they didn't get it for free.
They didn't get it for free. The Pathfinder, so by the time Pathfinder 1 came out, they were basically like, they should have this issue materials for free because sorcerers shouldn't have to be carrying around little bits of, dust and little bits of things.
They shouldn't be carrying a cricket around.
They shouldn't be carrying around a cricket or bat guano or a glass rod and a patch of fur to make a lightning bolt.
Is that a thing?
Because the static.
Well, if you take like fur and you rub it against a glass
That
rod.
was like a thing you were
No. To cast lightning bolt, you needed a glass rod and a patch of fur, and you would rub it together to create the static electricity, and that created the lightning bolt.
Huh.
All the components actually have like a kind of funny,
for example,
real version.
The components for fireball were saltpeter and bat guano, which is how you make dynamite.
Oh.
Right. Bat guano contains the the building blocks.
Kind of reminds you of Pyro from X-Men 3 or 2, where he has a lighter and he just puts a lighter
Sure.
out, and he can do stuff.
Yeah.
He can't do anything without. He can't just make fire. He can only control fire, basically.
What is it called? It's a fertilizer. What's the fertilizer? No, the fertilizer that people can blow up all the time. Not sodium nitrate.
I know it's fertilizer.
Ammonium nitrate.
Nitroglycerin?
No, ammonium nitrate is what is in bat guano, and that's one of the main component of gunpowder.
The only time guano was relevant was Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Right.
There's almost like
What
a
nature calls.
joke in the spell components where you could go, is this actually magic? Or do people just not understand what's going on?
Pepper says, one of my favorites is in 5th edition, Detect Thoughts. It costs a material component of a
Penny for
copper,
your thoughts.
a penny for your thoughts.
Oh, that's actually kind of clever,
Right.
actually.
So
that's pretty
That's
good.
just really funny.
Yeah, that is that. But again, it's because 5th edition was them being like, remember old D&D? Didn't you love that?
Right. Let's go back.
Let's go back to that.
The
how
guano
wacky
part
it
sounds
is.
kind of goofy, but the penny for your thoughts is kind of cool.
I mean, if we go to the 5th edition spells and we look them up, we should see it. Still, I don't know if these things are in alphabetical order or not. No, they're not. Oh, they are in alphabetical order. Fireball in 5th edition has a Fireball. Find familiar. Here we go. Fireball. Components: a tiny ball of bat guano and sulfur. So even if you need that in order to cast fireball.
Yeah, every one of these has some kind
Yeah,
of
they all have goofy shit.
Rod
Friends,
Meg and
a
several-
small amount of makeup applied to the face.
Yeah, I'm reading Stinking Cloud, a rotten egg, or several skunk cabbage leaves. I'm like, what the heck are we doing here?
Yeah.
Some don't though. Like some of these high level ones don't really.
Yeah, I guess by the time you're doing something really awesome, they're like, yeah, it's okay. You don't need to do that stuff
A
anymore.
sunbeam. I need a magnifying glass.
So that's part of the goofy nature of D&D.
Okay. Yeah,
So-
I didn't even. I never even looked at that.
Yeah, most people
Never ever have done that.
didn't. That's all right. They pretty much got rid of,
They're gone now. PF2.
Yeah, that's pretty much gone now in Pathfinder 2. In fact, in the
Probably why I had to
remaster,
stop looking at it.
in the remaster, I mean, in the core original Pathfinder 2, pretty much all of that was gone anyways. There were some spells that had a material component. Very few, very few. Now they got rid of those entirely.
Yeah, they're all gone.
And so now you don't have that at all anymore. So that has basically gone the way of the dodo. But that brings us to the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Sorcerer. And in some ways, the Sorcerer here, now obviously from a raw spell, from a raw spell ability, the power of a 5th edition or 3rd edition Sorcerer using that class spell list is unparalleled.
Yeah.
They literally had spells in 3rd edition that would just, kill you. Disintegrated you.
Yeah.
They still weren't A tier, but they were like A minus or
They were very, very, very strong. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a Codzilla.
right. Again, it came back because you didn't have preparation.
Correct.
That's why they were weaker.
Right. And it's funny because back in the day when people talked about the really super powerhouse classes of 3rd edition D&D, it was Cleric, Druid, which is why they called it COD, C-O-D, Cleric or Druid, Zilla, like Godzilla. Instead of Godzilla, Codzilla. But Wizards were also considered in the same breath as being super OP. But really not as much Sorcerers, because what made those characters so broken was that the spells in 3rd edition, like in 5th edition, were extremely powerful, but sometimes did nothing. So if you could pick the right ones, you would destroy the encounter. You had the wrong ones, not so much.
Yeah. You're attacking with your spear.
Right? And so sorcerers had this problem. Now, what's funny is most people will say, I am one of them, that script has been flipped in Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
100%. Totally agree.
That the sorcerer, or the classes that use spontaneous casting, are stronger than the classes that use prepared casting. And this is a big, flip because most people, myself included, consider sorcerer to be probably the premier casting class of Pathfinder 2nd
I think you ranked
Edition.
it S tier, didn't you?
I mean, I ranked it S tier.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I ranked it, A tier at low levels because like all classes, you don't have a lot of spells at low level.
Yeah, high levels S tier easily.
But you very quickly get to
the fact you can cherry pick your spells is stupid. Honestly.
And so a couple of things. Number one, you have charisma as a key stat. Now let's compare the sorcerer to the wizard. Because to be fair, there's a lot of classes, but the wizard in Pathfinder 2nd Edition can only use arcane, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Because it's technically the best.
It's technically the best. But the sorcerer can pick all 4.
Right.
So right off the bat, we're doing something different here.
Well, it's also interesting they went away. I don't know if this happened in PF1, but we talked about wild magic or dragon.
Right.
And then in PF2, there's like aberrant, angelic, demonic, diabolic, draconic, elemental, fey, hag, imperial, undead.
PF1 had a lot of blood.
Okay, so I
PF1
was like,
had-
are they taking it from that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They continue to double down on that. And to be quite frank, I mean, your sorcerer who has the imperial bloodline, that's been pretty cool. To see that, that the use of that focus spell and the bloodline power coming back. And in our original Rise of the Runelords campaign, we had a Burl was a elemental sorcerer.
Yep.
And so he had his fire toss and his fire.
Yeah,
and so that was
cool.
very, very cool. And then
I played Draconic.
Bob was a dragon sorcerer. That kind of missed because
Well, that's where I was going to go.
the whole ability is to be able to have dragon claws.
Yeah,
I don't-
I did that at level 1, then I barely ever
And then
tried it again.
you never used it again. Yeah.
I'm kind of like whatever on Bloodlines from a personal point of view. This is not a mechanical judgment. Like, I get why people might like them. I don't really care. It's not my thing.
I don't think it needs. I think it's just adding. It's like almost going overboard in the flavor.
Well, I was actually going to say though, mechanically, I feel like it should be there because otherwise, you get too close to going back to the wizard.
That's what I'm saying.
So
There
I
should be
actually
something
appreciate
innate within
Pathfinder,
you.
like fleshing that out as a mechanic.
Yeah, and I think they should have gone more into it.
I agree. The one thing I will say, and this is more of a Pathfinder 2 problem than a Sorcerer problem, is you still have trap options in there, and I feel like something like a dragon sorcerer, like melee options should be very viable, but the game chassis just isn't set up that way. You get what I'm saying?
No, I'm sorry.
Because you weren't paying attention.
No,
that's
I
why.
am. I just don't understand.
You know how you get like your Dragon Claws as
Yeah,
a Dragon Sorcerer,
yeah.
right? That is like, someone will disagree on chat because they're going to be pedantic. That is not a really good option. And at a certain point, you are just going to be casting your spells, which has nothing to do with your class.
Correct. At level 1, I did the dragon thing, and it was in your campaign. I think I was.
It might have been mine, right?
And I was like, that was cool. Then after that, I was like, why wouldn't I just cast like anything else?
Yeah, you're never gonna do that again.
I was
right?
like only using magic
And
missile.
what I'm saying is, it would be cool if Bloodlines were like mechanically viable, where like
Yeah.
you are a full caster, but because you are a Dragon Sorcerer, like every now and then you actually could go fucking ham with claws that are like on par
Worth
with
it,
a martial
yeah.
character because that's the class you picked, right? So like I think they should have gone further with Bloodlines because
Yes.
the concept is cool.
Yes.
And I think that there's issues, not with the sorcerer specifically, but just with how Pathfinder works, where if you try to take a off primary option, and this could be, for example, like a ranger, like your other ranger, right?
Mhm.
Where you try to melee and range. Like things like that in Pathfinder are set up for failure because of how the math works in
Mhm.
game. And I find it disappointing because that would be really cool if like you could throw a fireball and then also like unload like a dragon.
But that's the problem. That is the problem, right? The problem is specifically
It'd be too powerful.
they're like, well, if you could melee well and get to cast all these spells,
Everyone would pick it.
then
Well, I mean, it should be limited.
But that's the problem. They've realized correctly so
Yeah.
that resource is not a thing anymore.
Well, sure.
Because that was the big failure of third edition was that, the 15-minute adventuring day, or the 5-minute adventuring day, where people realized, hey, my class sucks. My class is really powerful. I have these incredibly powerful spells: sleep, color spray, instant death, disintegrate.
I need a short rest.
But I ran out of them. So now my character's balanced because life sucks. Oh, wait, we'll just go back to town and rest. And then especially too, as the module, and by the way, Cure Light Wounds
Be a
1's
better dungeon master? I don't know.
well, there's two problems. Number one, you're either playing in a dungeon-based campaign, in which case, there's no reason why you can't retreat.
Yeah, if there's no reason you can't retreat, then you're going to retreat.
Right.
That's
which
what I'm
is
saying.
Which is what most people did. But the other problem is the trend of fantasy adventure games to move towards these more linear storylines. And a lot of these linear storylines, you have one encounter on Monday, then you're on the road for 3 days, and then the second encounter occurs on Thursday. Right? It's been 4 days. Of course you have all your powers. You go hypernova every time. So like it doesn't function.
Adventure stuff?
So
I mean,
but it's why the spell slot.
sure, but this is also why we get characters who fucking suck, and you get trap options.
Yes.
So it's not like we fixed the problem. It still sucks.
Because Sorcerer. Well, now you kind of have the worst of best worlds because Sorcerers still have limited slots. But because they understand that you're not going to actually run out,
yeah.
they made the power level of the spells much lower to be on balance. But if you do happen to run out, times are tough for you
Yeah.
because like now you're down to cantrips.
Cantrips are the worst.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, mechanically, they are literally the worst. That's their purpose. But
but they ain't bad.
yeah, I mean, it's not like you're punching. So
No, we've come a long way from the days of the crossbow,
Especially if
carrying
you're,
wizard.
If you're running into a party level -1 and kind of like where you do a lot in AV,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, electric arc's actually okay right here.
yeah.
Like I don't need to waste a spell slot on this.
Which I think is fine.
Well, actually, it's kind of nice.
I'm just saying the spell slot system doesn't make any sense for
Pathfinder 2?
Pathfinder 2.
Yeah, I have no idea what's still there other than
Well, because it had to be, I mean, they're not. I mean, it was still printed under the OGL, and it was still technically coming off of Pathfinder 1. They weren't going to 4th edition it and just like literally create a whole new system because I think they feared what would happen.
Well,
Yeah.
and this is why we get a fucking mess.
And so the Sorcerer is undoubtedly the GOAT and for the spellcasters because spontaneous in this game is better than prepared because there's number one, there's less really good spells, so it's easier to pick the good ones.
Preparing doesn't matter as much.
And number two,
the same
preparing
list.
doesn't matter as much. There was a time and a place where if your wizard took protection from fire or your cleric took protection from fire, that could completely negate an entire encounter.
Right.
That level of power is no longer found in the spells. So now it kind of is easy just to take the spells that you need. And then for everything else, you just grab it in a scroll. But the real advantage is that you have, because DCs are static now across all the levels, and you have access to signature spell, right? You can just, whatever spell you need, if you need more of that spell, you just use a higher level spell slot of it, if you need more of
enough
it.
signature spells to get all the good spells.
I mean, all of your spells, all of your good, and again, it doesn't really matter, if you use a lower level or higher level spell slot, because the DC is the same. Now, there might be some instances where the heightened does less damage or whatever like that. But long story short, no, it doesn't really matter. And there were plenty of times where, Burl had Fireball, 3rd level signature spell, and he's like, Fireball 3rd, Fireball 5th, Fireball 4th, Fireball. You get to pick whatever you want. And so you have infinite flexibility. For a wizard in Pathfinder 2, you have to know exactly how many fireballs you're going to throw today and what levels they need to be. And we haven't even talked about where this completely breaks down, which is incapacitation-based spells. Okay? Let's say you're going to take an incapacitation spell. Let's pick Paralyze or something, right? Well, the thing about Paralyze is a wizard is basically priced into basically saying, I need to take this as high level as I can.
Because I can't take the risk.
I can't take the risk. A sorcerer could take Paralyze, have it as a signature spell, and say, that thing's lower level than me. I will use exactly the right spell slot to cast it. I'll use a 4th level spell slot. I'll use a 3rd rank spell slot or whatever.
I only need to use as high as I
need to use as high as I need to, right? They can just dial that in. And this is something that only our patrons have seen, because I never released it to the wider channel, but we did a versus spellcaster combat and tactics. And one of the things I talked about was...
Which, by the way, if you're not a member of the Patreon, that's how you get access to exclusive content like that.
Right, which was supposed to go to the channel, but it never did. It went just to the patrons, but you know what? They deserved it.
So if you're not a patron yet, you could be, and you could watch it.
But one of the things I talked about was compare a wizard who takes Dispel Magic to a sorcerer who takes Dispel Magic. Now, Dispel Magic is a rank 2 spell, and you make a counteract check against a magical effect, and then it ends. Okay, well, the way counteract checks work is if the spell rank of the spell that is counteracting is higher than the spell rank of the spell that is being counteracted, okay, even if you fail the check, it still gets dispelled. Okay? Bob's like, wow. So
don't even look at me, because counteracting hurts my brain, and I need like a whiteboard while you're talking about it.
Okay. Long story short, let's say you pick up Dispel Magic as a wizard.
Yes.
Okay. And you pick it up at level 2. Sorcerer picks it up at level 2. You make it a signature spell. You don't need it. You could take it at level 4. You could take it at level 5. You could take it you could take it whatever level you want. It's many levels later. You guys now are like level 10 or 11. You have access to these higher rank spells. So you have level 6 rank spells, 5 rank spells for it. You take Dispel Magic.
Take it at the highest level.
And you take it at the highest level. Great. Somebody gets slowed. Level 3 slow.
Yeah.
You can dispel that.
That's right.
Using your rank 6 Dispel Magic. And guess what? The person who casts level 3 slow, higher level wizard. So you're going to have to make a counteract check, basically your check versus his check, your check versus his DC.
Yep.
You're probably going to fail.
Yeah, he's higher.
But your Dispel Magic is rank 6. And slow is rank 3.
Yep.
Even on a failure, you win. Gets dispelled. But you had to burn a level 6 spell slot.
Yeah, which sucks.
Aaron, the sorcerer, could go, oh, that's slow? I'll signature it up to 4.
4, yeah.
And I automatically succeed, basically, unless you critically fail. There's always a chance, of course. And so sorcerers just get this incredible ability, both on the counteract side, but also on the in-cap side, to just dial in their effect to what a wizard has to have guessed right at the very beginning of the day.
Which is impossible to do.
Or just used all their highest spell slots. And in some cases, they're going to be overpaying.
Yeah, so that's going to suck, especially if you were like, you know what, I think, judging on what we're going to go into, I'm going to take it a level, a 3rd rank. And then we get in there and you're like, I can't effing use this. It's literally just sitting there wasted spot. Yeah. That's what sucks. Yeah. You literally have a wasted spell slot.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a it is,
So you don't feel that, you just put
so spontaneous.
So I picked the Imperial Bloodline and I actually archetyped into Wizard. And so Sorcerer in a way is like the fighter of the casters. Right. I wanted to play a wizard, so I went Sorcerer.
Yep.
And they made a wizard out of that.
Yeah, and I wanted to be a really tough sorcerer, so I took champion archetype.
Right. Now, and I will say this, as far as class features go, they really don't get that much of anything.
Yeah, they get their bloodline.
They get their bloodline stuff, and that's about it. They get their spell.
And their feats, obviously. But,
Yeah, and, they get and the signature spell, which we talked about. But
yeah, but signature spell is it's one of those things. Again, mechanically cool, fun, powerful. Not flavor, but I don't know. Meta wise,
I mean, it's
terrible
that,
ability.
but it's that flexibility though that the sorcery points gave us. I will also say this, which people,
but again, in context of this game, when you can just like cherry pick your spells and how the lists work, it's just so easy to make up for the supposed shortcoming of limited repertoire.
right,
It's like it's mocking.
right. I mean, like, yes, your wizard, your whatever rank sorcerer is going to have 4 spells in their repertoire. That's it.
Right.
Of level 5, you're only ever going to know 4.
Yeah.
A wizard could have 10 in their book.
Yeah.
They could have 20 in their book.
4 are good.
But 4 good.
Yeah.
And the rest that you are like, these could be good.
I'll get a scroll.
I got that in a scroll.
Yeah.
I got that in a scroll.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever I think someone played a wizard. I don't think it was you.
And
I felt like
you
it was
get
a sorcerer. I would
every
never know the difference.
Every time you level up, you get free auto swapping in Pathfinder 2. So you can, if something's not working out or it was good then, but it's not good now, just swap it out.
That's not retrain. That's just for free. You get to do that.
Right. But the other thing is I don't think people appreciate how complex signature spell is, because the thing about signature spell is it works up and down.
Right.
So there might be an instance where you're like, I only get 4 spells for each spell rank. You're like, I really want fear.
Yeah.
But fear is level 1. But I really want True Strike, which is level 1.
Right.
So my level 1 signature spell is True Strike. But I took fear, which is a level 1 spell, as my level 2 spell.
Yep.
I took fear 2.
Right.
Yep.
But then I made that signature
spell.
So now I can cast it down.
Right.
And I can cast it up.
Right.
So that I can cast it as an AoE multi-target, or I can cast it as a single target.
Right.
But technically it's my level 2
It's your level 2 spell.
But I'm never going to cast it at level 2. I'm only ever going to cast it at 1 and 3.
And
it's not
if
even
things are going real bad.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice.
It's actually remarkably complex.
And it's a fun mechanic to play with.
Yes.
The meta game of retraining is cool.
Yeah. My point, all I was trying to point is,
But it is complex.
when 3rd edition came out, I was like, oh, the sorcerer is the easy mode wizard.
Yeah.
I do not view the Pathfinder 2 sorcerer as the easy mode caster.
Because this is the goat caster.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a lot of trouble with it.
Would easy mode caster probably be the wizard now?
Yes, I know. Yes, I would
Just
agree.
Pick your spells and you're fucking done.
Yeah, and you don't have to think about it.
Well, what happens when I go to cast it? Yeah, you just pick it. Well, what if I need something else? You can't.
You can't just live in the now.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
To comprehend languages and nothing talks. I don't tell you, man.
So as
we had a super chat coming in from Chris Unakatsi. He said, "Can I get a shout out for my dog, Toby-Wan Kenobi, on his 1st birthday?
Happy birthday, Toby-Wan Kenobi."
He's unknowingly a big fan because me listening to KLC makes his walks last longer. Sorcerer's fun. I will catch the vibe. Well, shout out to you, Toby-Wan Kenobi. I love all things dogs, and a 1-year-old dog makes me almost have puppy fever and be like, oh, I want to get a puppy. And then I think about how much work that is, and I go, okay, maybe not. But
That's like pregnancy brain.
yeah, it's right. But that is a big shout out.
Yeah, happy
to
birthday,
Toby-Wan.
Toby.
Yeah, happy birthday, Toby. PF2 Sorcerer is goated. It can stand in for anything and be superior to any caster in the game, except maybe a heal bot cleric.
Heal bot cleric is pretty powerful.
Heal
Really
bot
fun
cleric.
is powerful.
Heal bot cleric.
Now, question.
S plus tier heal.
So again, we talked about earlier, wizard and sorcerer.
Yeah.
And then they started to get into the warlock and the witch and all that. And I feel like in Pathfinder, there's magus and the.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
They've really
spellcasting
diversified.
yeah. Is it becoming
Well, when
too
everyone's magical,
bloated?
no one is, Bob.
Well, that's what I was thinking. It feels like before it was the wizard. It's oh my gosh, you have a wizard in your party? That guy can do some stuff.
That's actually fairly accurate.
And now I feel like we don't have one. What the? What do we?
What does that even mean?
Someone needs to be able to cast arcane spells because magic missile needs to happen in this party.
Magic missile is pretty powerful.
So a couple of things I would say. Number one,
He heard his name. That's cute.
that's awesome. Yeah. I would say that you had 2 problems. The one is the realization that magic is fun. Okay. If you look at even from the beginning of the game, there were a fair number of characters had access to magic. By the time you got to 3rd edition, there were 3 classes that didn't have spells. It was fighter, barbarian, rogue, and monk, but they had supernatural magic abilities.
Yeah.
So they're like 3 classes.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. That didn't have magical abilities.
And if you're playing that class high level, you're picking up.
Yeah,
You
and
use
even the
magic
rogue
device.
could pick up minor
So do
magic.
you like that?
Yeah.
Well, no, but here's the other thing to realize: magic in D&D and in Pathfinder is not magic. Okay,
It's like technology.
it's like technology. Okay, like consider this. You know, I know you're not a sci-fi guy, right? But
Not like you guys, but
well,
different type of sci-fi.
but you know, in sci-fi, you usually have the character who's like really good with engineering or hacking, or they're always cobbling stuff together. They're the chief engineer, right? They're really good with technology. They can build technology and they can fix it. They can change it.
Yep.
That's like the wizard with magic. Then you have the other characters in your sci-fi film, but they use technology.
Right.
In fact, their whole existence might be based around something like, I don't know, a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Right. They use their laser gun. They
it's
have
like
their,
Q and Bond.
you know, well, no, yeah, Bond uses it.
Yeah, Q makes it.
So Bond uses the tech.
yeah.
Right. So it's almost like in sci-fi, you have the people who build and are used, and then there's people who use the stuff. You know, and magic is technology in D20 because, in fact, it's better than technology because it costs nothing. Comes from the ether, has no cost. The only cost is I had to get a good night's sleep last night. And when I wake up in the morning, I can create stone from nothing that will last forever. No mines have to be dug. No work needs to be done. It can be done in under 15 minutes. And I will create hundreds of feet of stone wall. We can't even do that today. And no peasants have to toil. No, you could build the Great Pyramid of Egypt in like a couple months with just 1 or 2 reasonably high level wizards. So, but what did it cost? Nothing. You're not drawing from the soul of the world. You're not risking, demonic possession.
Right.
You're not doing any of those things. Magic is completely.
And you already paid the cost. The cost was you had to become a high level wizard.
Right. So in that respect, magic is just technology in these game sets. And so it makes total sense to me that most classes, when it's this freely abundant, would just use it.
I guess that's fair. I didn't think about that. Like, I think about that it should have a cost or something.
Well,
Well, I mean, think about like your life, right? Like you're not like a software engineer or anything like that, right? Do you use computers?
yeah,
Do you drive a car?
yeah,
Do you use your phone?
yeah,
right.
Okay.
Right. You use
Someone had
technology
maybe-
every day.
yeah.
Right. In fact, you might even like someone's entire, thing might be like, what are you, like, what's your whole thing? Oh, I'm a digital artist. I'm a Photoshop person. Like, okay, so your whole career is based around technology. No, I'm an artist. Yeah, but technology is how you use Photoshop, you use your pen, you use your Wacom drawing tablet or whatever. So that's the same thing, to me, my opinion, that the way that D&D is.
I also don't think
Interesting.
that D&D is locked in at the level range where Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas are leading a bunch of untrained combatants through the wilderness. I think that's a specific level range in D&D. And that's why, like, it doesn't bother me at higher levels, particularly in a game like 3rd edition.
Well, yeah.
What's that?
No, I know exactly where
Yeah.
you're going. Yeah.
Where, like, now all of a sudden your fighter is literally flying around and pulling out fireball devices and clearly not on the same level as the wizard, but even the fighter now is using magic in a very real way, right? It doesn't bother me because why wouldn't they,
Yeah.
right? If the 3 of us were going, I don't know, we're going into Africa, we're going to go steal some diamonds from the Congo, right? Like, and we had access to like sweet guns and technology, would we be like, no, this is going to cramp my style?
Yeah.
I'm a martial artist,
it's
so
not my
I'm
role-
going to punch the
I
girls.
need to role play this right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, we'd be like, what are the heaviest guns we can bring?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, now
Interesting.
granted, obviously you have, magic items, which is what that is to a certain degree. But it is also just a case, again, where I think that magic has become, very hyper commoditized, because this is the other
The question is, should it? I
Well,
guess is that but that's a D&D thing, right? Because there are
people-
games that can do that.
I think it's a mistake to think D&D is not that. in terms of should it be, I think that's personal preference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's what I was kind of getting at. It's
Well,
like
because-
D&D is that.
Because
And if you want to play something different, then go
Well,
play something different.
because that
maybe has
commoditization
Dark
of
Sun or
magic is something
like
else that I wanted to talk about with the Sorcerer, specifically from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Because now the Sorcerer in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you just said it, there's like 20 different bloodlines.
Yeah.
Each of which maps to a different tradition. In fact, maps to all 4 traditions.
That's right. All
A
of them.
sorcerer can be arcane, occult, primal, or divine.
Yep.
So what is a sorcerer?
No idea.
It's not really, you know what I mean?
It's whatever you want it to
Well,
be.
what is it? I don't know. You know, it's
Best class.
it's really and then to your point, Smith, you know, we're talking about how now the choices seem meaningless. Sorcerer also gets access to one of the best feats in the game, which is cross-blooded evolution.
Correct.
And you know, caster feats, by the way, in general, aren't really great across the game. But
Sorcerer gets some of the best.
Sorcerer gets some of the best. They get dangerous sorcery. They get cross-blooded evolution, right?
Yeah.
And you know, so if
Depending
there
on your blood type, you get an amazing evolution.
right, you could get a fantastic bloodline evolution. In fact, you actually eventually get greater cross-blood evolution. You get a second spell.
I know.
So basically,
really?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And in a game where there's not that many, you know, like really, I mean, truly, the point is, any class can end up with heal, and usually do.
And usually do.
And so it's
You see the same spells getting cast at the end of the game.
exactly, and that's where it's kind of like, you know, it's very powerful because of the flexibility. It's very powerful because of the fact that, you know, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The sorcerer gets 4 spell slots per level. Now, yes, the wizard gets 3, but he can recharge 1. But that's one that he already cast.
Right.
So it's like he had 3. It's not like he has 4, because 4 could mean he could take 4 different ones.
Right.
You can't do that.
No,
he has to take 3, and then he can recharge.
cast 1 twice.
I guess
You
in
can guess one
this
twist.
in PF2, right? There's the key stat, right?
Yeah.
That's different. Obviously, wizards are intelligence.
Right.
and
Well, let's talk about
sorcerers
that.
are charisma.
Wizards are intelligence. Sorcerers are charisma.
Charisma is
Yeah.
so powerful. in Pathfinder too.
Charisma
Yeah.
is so powerful. in
Correct. Well,
Pathfinder
that's
too.
what I'm
The skills that you use for it are
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Right.
Intimidate is amazing.
Intimidate and Bon mot, which Cyber
mot,
mentioned.
right.
You know, Bon Mot.
And then let's talk about charisma.
But that didn't
from
happen in
the
5e,
multi-class
right?
perspective.
Oh, sure. Right. How many goat multi-class archetypes have int as a requirement? The answer, none.
Right.
Right.
But gee, what can we pick up of a good charisma, Derek?
I don't know if my strength's okay. Maybe I can pick up that champion dedication. You know, yeah. So it's really in fact, they changed this now in core, but in the original version of the game too, any sort of random innate ability that you gained had a DC that was charisma based. So since the sorcerer was key stat charisma, they were always just better at that too.
Oh gosh.
Because like the wizard would be int based, and you'd get some sort of innate power, and it'd be like, well, that DC is based off your charisma.
Yeah.
I think they cleaned that up in core, but in the remaster. But my point is, they get 4. But you know what? There are other spontaneous classes in this game. They don't, you know, if we go and look at the Oracle,
Yeah, we got the Oracle
if we go and look at the Oracle
and the Bard, right?
gets 3.
Yeah.
The Oracle literally just gets 1 spell less than the Sorcerer.
And they don't have a gimmick.
I mean, their gimmick is when they cast their spells, they get really bad.
No, I mean, they don't have a gimmick that gives another spell, right?
No, they
'Cause
do
a lot
not.
of people end up with the Magic
No.
4.
Yeah, they do not. No. Sorcerers and wizards end up with a magic 4.
But Druid got, or sorry, not Druid, Clerks got 4.
No,
This is a domain.
clerics get
They
3,
get 3.
but clerics get 3, but they get the bonus. Clerics get 3, but they get all the bonus heals from their font.
That's true.
Okay, which isn't quite the same,
same, but yeah.
it's almost. Druids just get 3,
Druids
get
just get
fucked.
3 and get
They
fucked.
get nothing.
Okay. Oracle
gets
gets 3
3
and literally gets fucked.
And literally gets nothing. And then the other one is Witch, which
They're prepared.
they're prepared, but they just get 3 as well.
Okay. So there's clearly some sort of sense of like spell casting tier.
Well, yes. I mean, absolutely. Hey, we had a super chat from our friend.
Enable?
No, this is a Nail.
Oh, how's it coming over?
Nail
Bale.
Nail Bale.
Thanks, by the way, for the spell tier list videos. Helped me build my demonic sorcerer and make the most of the divine spell list.
Fantastic. Well, you're in good luck then, because the remaster really helped out the divine spell list. A lot of the spells that were kind of in divine spell list got better. I mean, assuming your sorcerer is any sort of maybe like buffer, protector, helper, outer, they did get a lot better on that. And thank you for your first super chat. We appreciate it. Thank you. And
Oh, that's what that one means when it's popping
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Cool.
And but thank you for watching our videos. I know that one is a particularly long one. But yeah, so getting back to getting back to the sorcerer and the wizard, the idea is that the witch and the druid and the oracle are supposed to have all these other class features
Right.
that make them compelling to make up for the lack of 9 or so slots. I mean, to a certain extent, they're probably right, because at higher level, who the hell is going through all these spells in a day of honestly?
You don't know.
Who's going? You have, if you're a sorcerer, okay, and you're whatever highest level, you have 9 levels of 4. That's 36. Then you have your 10th level spot. That's 37. You got a couple cantrips. You got some maybe points in your staff. That's 30. And you have scrolls. Like,
We're what,
focus,
10th
focus spells
level
too,
now?
so-
you're 10th level now.
I cannot cast all of my spells.
Right.
Yeah.
You just have so many.
Yeah. You just go through the top couple. And
You know,
you're-
and
you're
now
done.
that focus points come back even easier, you know, there are some legitimately good focus spells out there. So now there's even less of a reason to have to use your slots.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to a certain extent, I go, yeah, maybe they're right. You know, I even said I still think it's a little bit over punitive. But this isn't the sorcerer. But when the Magus and this when the Magus and the Summoner came out, I was really critical of the wave casting progression.
Sure.
Because it was like, it's just, you get 4 slots.
Yeah.
You know, it's your 2 highest. You know, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. It was like 4 slots. All right, that's a little punitive.
It's a
It
little
should be.
tight,
It should maybe be like 8. But I'd be like, yeah, that'd be. I think I'd be okay with 8 with really good focus spells. Right? It's almost like what you need.
Oh, and they
is
don't
like,
get. They don't
it's
even
like
get a 10th.
what you. What's that? No one get. No, this is the Magus.
Oh, Mega, sorry.
Oh yeah.
No, but if you look, the sorcerer doesn't get it either.
Well, sorcerers get.
It's a class feature.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, I got it. I know I got it.
Oh, they actually have it on the list. Okay. Yeah.
it's on the list, but you have to have the feat.
You have,
Yeah.
you have to. It's a class feature that gives it to you.
I took it.
But yeah, like, it's like what you need is like 4 or 5 like really powerful daily spell slots, and then you need like 4 or 5 like usable every maybe
Like every
5
fight.
every combat, maybe every 5 minutes. You know, after every fight you can refocus really quickly, and you get like 4 or 5 of those, and then
Just in
like
case a couple cantrips.
and then like 2 or 3 at will
At
type
wills.
cantrips. It's,
Yeah,
that would really work.
that would be a good progression.
That would be a really good progression.
Yeah.
We got some folks here. Ayla says wave casting is terrible until you realize that PCs rest after every encounter and it doesn't matter anyways. Yep, accurate. And again, yes, there is going to be the day that the summoner gets into a combat or gets into an adventuring day, and they have to go 4 encounters in a row.
I mean, they're basically a elite class stuff.
But they have their
doesn't
idol
matter.
on, and they've got their cantrips, and like that one time that comes up is going to be mostly irrelevant.
Isn't one of the most powerful Magus spell strikes a psychic cantrip?
It's a
anyway?
psychic, yeah. It's an imaginary weapon. Ironically, imaginary weapon. Victor says,
Is the weapon less imaginary when it's being cast through an actual weapon?
maybe that's why it's so effective. Victor says PF2 and 5e try to bring the mechanics and the lore together, but yeah, sorcerers are your anime protagonists. How can you possibly balance that? I mean, that is part of the problem.
Well, you can balance it, but
You know, I mean, they did that in 4th edition.
Yeah.
They balanced magic against not magic,
right.
and people shit themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sort of thing here, it comes back to what kind of game.
By the way, I still see, and I don't. This is probably like the anti-hot take. I think casters are fine in PF2. I think they're powerful. I think they get the job done. Are they killing? But there's so many people who go. There's so many on the Reddit. I'm talking about like
sure,
who are like, why did Paizo shit all over the casters? Why are the fighters?
Well, they're coming from PF1.
Right. And that's fair, but those were incredibly stupidly powerful.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and the only reason they weren't in our games is because we sort of self-regulated.
Well, right. Yeah, but I was gonna say these are 2 different types of games, and you should know what you're playing when you get into it. If I'm playing 4E or PF2, I'm like, all right, magic is gonna be way more in line, unless you're the kineticist, in which case, do whatever the fuck you want.
Right. We're talking about all this. Bob's over here playing a kineticist.
Yeah.
He'll do something, and I'm like, wow, that is an insane spell. And then I go, oh, that's
It's
just
not a
at will.
spell.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just at will.
Yeah.
That's forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every round.
It's
Forever.
2 actions that maybe uses his gate. Or whatever.
I remember the first time, and don't demonetize me, YouTube. I remember the first time that you nutted in somebody's mouth.
Yeah.
With your kineticist.
Yep.
And well, actually, you were nutting in everybody's mouth, including your own.
Nourishing nut.
Nourishing Nut. Great name. Great name, Paizo. And I was thinking, oh, this is going to be like 6 hit points.
No.
You know, like a lay on hands.
No.
Nah. Not even close. It was like 35 hit points or something. 40 hit points.
It gives you like the.
and then it gives you void resistance.
Yeah.
Equal to like half your level. Like reasonable. This is just a bonus rider.
for 10 minutes.
For 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's not like a little like.
It's not like one round.
Yeah.
That's better than class features.
Like this
Because
is
every time we end a combat, I'm like, is someone gonna heal? If not, I'll just nourishing nut everyone.
No, why would I ever heal? Like the only time
It's so easy.
I took heal as a sorcerer because nutting is slightly inefficient, right?
yes.
If you get crit, you don't want to nut in someone's mouth, right?
I will also say this about the.
because I have to actually use it. And
It's
then
a whole
I-
thing.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
no, but
Versus me going
Yeah.
boom, 50 hit.
By the way,
points,
I
right?
will say this though. The thing that's nice about the nut is that the nourishing nut is still 2 actions to get the heal. Now it's not as powerful as heal,
split the
but you split the actions.
well,
and so
that's
what that
cool.
means is that your kineticist can, nut in
Yeah.
someone, and then they can take their 2 actions and still do their kineticist blast,
Yeah.
Yep.
which will still trigger their gate junction,
Yep.
which will still give them their temporary hit points
because
or whatever.
the
it
other
is.
person has to spend an action
Right.
to swallow the nut.
Right. But then they could still cast their spell.
Right.
So
No, it's
very-
still better. It's still awesome.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying you're limited how many times you could do that because you have a refractory period of about 10 minutes.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Before you can.
Yeah, I can do
nut
you,
it. Yeah.
me, and then I gotta wait.
Actually, no. It's
No,
not.
it's more before you can receive the nut.
Yeah, before you can receive the nut,
Right.
you can
nut as much
he can nut
as
as
you
he
want.
wants.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like a treat roll.
You're shooting blanks at a certain
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the only reason I have heal is because someone got
Sometimes,
crit
Yeah.
and you nutted, or it's just too much damage because they're
Yeah,
30's a lot.
to be
but-
clear, yeah, your 5th rank heal is 5d8 plus 40.
Right.
It's going to be like
Right.
60 something hit points, which is like double what the nut would give. Now, granted, that's one of your max level slots.
Yeah.
You can only do that so many times per
Well,
day.
by the way, yeah, I'm limited on that.
Bob could do this infinite times per day.
Yes.
Which is why I would never heal outside
wait.
of a fight.
To everyone.
Yep.
Every 10 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I assume I'm nutting after every combat.
100%.
Why wouldn't you
We don't
know?
even need medicine anymore.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
delete all those feats.
It's true. I mean, you
Retrain
kind of.
them.
I mean, you kind of never needed them, but anyways. I mean, to be fair, Bob goes down, but that's when you have heal, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, we do end up going down a lot, so it's nice to
Going down them nuts.
yeah, it's nice to get the nut after that.
But in
You
the
go down, you should get it.
but in the remaster, the cleric got a new feat that lets them, after combat, create a magical zone where if you stand in it for 10 minutes, you and your allies all regain like 5 hit points.
It's nice.
That's at high level, of course.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you were talking. I thought that was low level. Sorry, I thought that's not too bad. I
Because okay,
thought I was gonna
okay.
scale.
That feat almost could be good.
You definitely reviewed this one in your
I review that one?
yeah, it's called like Sacred Circle or something.
I don't remember if I went over.
There's a long video.
There's a lot.
It was long.
That's
That you
another-
can only
that's-
get if you're
that's
a
another-
patron.
Video.
That's another Patreon bonus, by the way.
Yeah, you want to see a remaster review? What was that, hour 45 minutes?
Yeah, quick video.
Quick video.
Luciano says, "What are your thoughts about arcane thesis spell substitution?" I mean, higher
I
level.
remember. I think it sucked,
Well, no, that's from Wizards.
and that's what I'm saying.
It lets you convert your lower level spell slots into higher level spell slots. I mean, good.
What is this arcane?
I mean, yeah, you're not
thesis?
using them, so I guess it's fine.
You're not using them, so it's fine. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, if you do it, because you can only do it to each level once. So what basically like if you had like a rank 6 spell
Yeah.
and you wanted to, you want an extra rank 6 spell, you could convert 2 lower level, I think level 4 spells.
Was it 4?
Arcane thesis.
Oh, that was
Spell.
the first thing, wasn't it?
And did he say spell blending or what did he say? So spell substitution. Oh, he's talking about spell. Okay, he's talking about spell substitution. This is the one that lets you swap.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah. You can spend 10 minutes to empty one of your prepared slots and prepare a different one from your spellbook in your place. If you're interrupted during such a swap, the original spell remains present. So here's the thing. If we were talking 3rd edition, this would be amazing.
Yeah.
In Pathfinder 2nd edition, I don't know that it's as strong because, again, those utility spells in Pathfinder 2nd edition tend to be fairly drab.
Yep.
Now, if you have a thick book with a ton of different spells in it and you don't already have those spells and scrolls, and you probably would anyways, because if you need that, we need a breathe water spell.
Yeah.
I've got that in my book. I can swap it out with spell substitution. Great. That is cool.
Yeah.
But you could also have a bunch of scrolls of that just in your back pocket.
Right. This
ready to
isn't
go.
worthless. It's not as good as you might think it is.
Yeah. I think it's reasonable.
And part of it isn't because
And you
of
can use
this
it infinite
class.
number of days.
It's kind of like just how the game is built in general. Like there's also a general lack of need for a lot of these spells because the game is just designed differently. So,
Yep.
like for example, like you could get some encounters in 3rd edition that were like we talked about fire protection for fire a lot, that were like ridiculous with the amount of fire damage coming out to the extent where you're gonna just die because you didn't prepare for it, and then you cast protection from fire, and now you are ignoring all of that damage, which just means now you can participate in the encounter, right? So like the way things were balanced in these older editions were so different than the way they're balanced now. Like preparation was key. Like the reason you used to need to divine, and divining was so important. One of Derek's best characters had access to divine magic, and George.
You mean divination magic?
Divination, sorry, not divine. Divination, and George had a literal diviner. He specialized in divination magic because it was so powerful. Because knowing what you were going to do and where you're going, and being able to like have the map and all that stuff was huge, especially for a prepared caster. Because then they could just crush it. But all that stuff, one, is hard to do now, and two, it doesn't matter as much because the way the fights are balanced, past a certain level, let's call it 3, when you're a little bit more well-rounded from the early level shenanigans, it doesn't matter because all the fights are going to play out the same anyway.
I mean, I'll give you a great example. Let's say you go fight a creature, take your pick, fiend, undead, elemental, right? And it has some resistance, right? And it has some weakness. Let's say, I'll make it really easy. Let's say we're fighting an ice elemental, right? An ice giant, okay? He has resistance or even immunity to cold, and he has weakness to fire. If no one in that party, and you look at the math and you say, okay, this is a party level +2 monster, we got a party anything, okay, this is a moderate fight. If you look at that frost giant and go, in Pathfinder 2, and go, oh, no one in my party has flaming weapons or fire weapons, they're screwed. They'll never beat this thing. No, because you look and you go, what's the fire weakness? 5.
Yeah.
And you go, 5 or 10 or 8 or something, and you go, all right, well, the thing has 175 hit points. Like,
We'll melt it in 2 rounds.
We'll have to hit it. If they had fire weapons, they might have to hit it a couple less times.
Yeah. One round less or something.
One round less. And yeah, sure, that is a thing. But by no means do you need that.
Right.
And by no means does it give...
You're making it seem like during the other old
Yeah.
school, it was like
But-
make or break.
But also give you the opposite.
If you have fire against a troll in 3rd edition, you ran away.
And I'll
Yeah.
give you the flip side of it too, because
Or
you might,
died.
because you might say, well, the frost giant is resistant, potentially even immune.
Yeah.
Is resistant to cold. So if you have a cold weapon, if you have a elemental rune of cold, that could really hurt you. Except in Pathfinder Second
That's
Edition,
like 1 damage.
well, no, in Pathfinder Second Edition, not the first one, admittedly, but when you get the second elemental rune,
Yeah.
it ignores the target's resistance.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't
So like a flaming sword,
gosh, yeah, I
a
didn't
flaming
think about
sword can hurt a creature,
elemental.
that has, that's probably immune, so it's probably safe. But like, yes, if there's a creature out there that's like, I have 20 resistance to fire.
Yeah.
And you're like, I have a flaming sword. You're like, haha, that'll definitely not be effective.
Yeah.
Actually, it's totally effective. It's as effective against you as it would be against anybody else.
It's kind of lame.
The
Now,
fire.
I do want to throw something out.
But the
there.
reason they do that is because otherwise what would end up happening is the math, which they are tying to, would be wrong. Because if I had the fight was 3 frost giants and I had party A, which had a bunch of people all with flaming weapons and cold gear, and then I have another party over here who are all loaded up with the wrong stuff. If we were playing a game where the frost giants would wipe that party and the other party would just embarrass those monsters, then you have a problem. Because now if you throw that encounter at your PCs across tens of thousands of tables across the world,
Yeah.
you don't want that wide of a distribution of results. You want it to be the McDonald's, right? You want it to be that consistent
Yeah.
experience.
When you say you want, it's not us because I like the high variance.
So all this, keep in mind, there is another game that does the same exact thing. Do you know what that game is?
There's another game does what same exact thing.
Basically, it's a good way of saying it. Neuters these encounters where they mathematically are all relatively the same.
Another game that does the same that we've played.
Not yet, but we've talked about it a lot.
Oh, I wonder if it's Forbidden Lands.
4th edition.
4th edition. Ah,
4th edition is the same thing. it's designed where you're going in these encounters and you have what you have, right? I would say the difference is 4th edition. There's no preparation.
And to be clear, when we were playing 4th edition,
Yeah, that was a problem.
and we had our moments of crisis when we were playing it.
That was one of them.
You and I both, as both a player and a GM, were very frustrated at times, especially coming from 3rd edition.
Right.
That 4th edition felt like it was basically saying, you can't outthink this encounter. You can't be like, well, I prepared this spell and this spell and this ritual.
Right. You don't prepare.
And now this fight is going to be really easy. You don't prepare. You have your powers. That's what you have.
I don't know if I like that or not.
It's a different kind of game.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, I like this idea that, like, if we prepared, it makes it easy, so you feel like a badass, but also, like, if
that gets into, like, combat as war,
Yeah.
like we talk about a lot,
Yeah.
right? And these 2 games, 4E
I
and
also like this
PF2,
idea of
are
running
combat
away.
sport.
We don't really do that in PF2 a lot. I mean,
You
you're
don't need
supposed to, but, like, I always feel like even in AV, we're like, yeah, we'll probably be able to beat this. Like, we should be fine.
AV, the experience we have in AV is probably the closest you would get to a traditional Pathfinder game and wanting to run away, because even then we're not playing it traditionally.
Yeah.
Right. We're down in man, and the problem is when you're down in man, it does really fuck with the math. Like, even though
That's why we've
Derek has
died.
it perfectly balanced in the sense that, like, we're one level higher. So
Yeah.
from an experience budget standpoint, we are identical, which is great. It's cool. It's the randomness that kind of bites you, right? When one of us does drop, it's such a worse swing
Oh, yeah.
than in
It's
a
huge.
4-person party, right? And so that's why AV has had the spike difficulties as it has that. Plus, we're assholes. Like,
But I kind of like that.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
We know that this system's like whatever, so we kind of push it because we're just bored, right?
Yeah, we are like, if we poked any system, we would find these same
100%.
issues and flaws.
Yeah.
I mean, like, again, I mean, people are always like, oh, I was like, no, like, we are being a little bit of shit stirrers. A little.
100%.
Yeah.
We should talk everything.
Yeah, right. But like,
Seriously, 4E apologists. You guys want to see us get negative about 4E? We'll play 4E.
It's coming.
Because every game's got their problems, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear, though. I'm not actually saying, even in Pathfinder's case, that this is a problem. I'm pointing out this is the reason you play these games.
Yep.
right.
Like, if you want that balanced encounter, because let's say you're coming from the other school where you're like, I hate how wizards are so powerful, and Aaron shows up and he just snaps his fingers and the encounter's over and I can't hit with my barbarian, then you should play 4th edition, because then I can't end the fight with a spell and you're going to get to do your thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd have to.
It's a different style of play.
It's
Yeah.
just different display.
I mean,
and that's my opinion,
I figured
honestly.
that
I like both.
Yeah.
Derek could be like, we're going to play some 4E. I'd be like, all right, let's do it. Derek could be like, I'm busting out 3rd edition. I'd be like, all right, let's do it. And very different for me, right?
Yeah.
Very different approach. I might play wizard of both, but even then, that's going to be very different how I play that wizard.
Yeah.
Right? If I play 4E, I'm like, all right, guys, I'm going to lock down these minions. We're going to debuff them. I'm going to make you have like the sweet bows to attack. If I'm playing like a wizard, I'm like, all right, well, I'll have 1 or 2 I win spells just to flex every now and then in case I have to check Bob. But for the most part, I'm just going to take spells that make Bob laugh and giggle like a little girl, because I personally find it amusing, right?
Yes.
And that's how, like, Derek and I are very similar for our wizard taste. Like,
Right.
we are very support wizard
Yeah.
characters, right? Because as a wizard, it's just amazing just watching your party just like go and destroy things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you a summoner wizard? No. Why do you have minions? Well, that's what my party is.
Right. Yeah. So, so again, I think, as we look at the Pathfinder 2 Sorcerer, if we look at the kind of the evolution of where it is, in some ways, it has kind of crawled out, it's only the class is only 20 years old, and it kind of has crawled out of the shadow and is now kind of on top, right? It's kind of the
Good
goat,
for you, Sorcerer.
And it's
go.
not in core.
but it's not in core 1.
Not in core 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be in core 2.
They talked about if they're changing anything. with
I
Sorcerer?
mean, if history is any your thing, they'll probably buff it.
That's true. They're probably buffing. You know what?
Nah.
You guys get 5 spells level.
I mean, to
I
be
can't
fair,
imagine
technically the
they
Sorcerer as a class that automatically gets focus spells is already buffed because of the focus point regeneration thing.
We'll have to see what they do. Maybe someone has an inside track on
I
that.
will say this, I especially with this change now, I think every character, I think every class should just start with 3 focus points.
I agree.
I don't know.
I think
you
your
know,
class should have focus powers.
I do agree too, actually.
Because they could have some like focus powers, and maybe if everyone could have some sort of like super daily encounter, and then of course their standard like like things they could do constantly, almost at will.
This is like a 4E
Yeah, it's a
meme?
4E thing,
Okay.
yes.
I was like, I could feel the 4E meme coming, but I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
Because you'd be like, wait, actually, that does sound sweet.
Victor says, I actually don't know how 4E differs from PF2 in terms of balance of counters. Are sorcerers broken in 4E as well? No.
Nope,
No.
not at all.
In fact, actually, I mean, sorcerers are damage dealers, but it is pretty much considered that Rangers and Barbarians are the top damage dealers in 4th edition. But that's okay, because the sorcerers, while they may not do as much damage as those two classes, they do have the ability to target they can target multiple opponents at once. Classes like the Rogue and the Ranger or the Barbarian can kind of struggle against a fast field of minions, which is what you want a controller for. But
Also,
in a pinch, a sorcerer can fill in.
There's another dynamic there too, which is the range aspect. Like, because unlike Pathfinder 2,
Well, the
where your
Ranger can be
defenses
ranged.
are all identical, the Sorcerer is soft, but it's not like the Barbarian and Ranger are particularly hard. They're a little bit better, but not hard.
Barbarian's pretty good, actually.
Barbarian, well, depends on how you spec them. You can make a Barbarian tank, which is legit, right? But those characters, to do their thing, got to be in the fray,
Yes.
right? Whereas the Sorcerer can hold back.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a super chat coming in from our friend Karamak. I'm here to force multiply my party, so it's everyone else's fault when they roll bad. Well, so to be clear, let me be very clear about something. Then I have my reasons, right? I have my reasons for being so selfless. But Smith's reasons for being selfless and being like, in fact, this is the reason why you played a warlord in 4th edition.
This is true.
And why he's always talking about, like, I just want to be the buffing guy. I just want to,
I do legitimately love buffing my friends.
It's because he basically says, because I roll like shit. That is what Smith said.
That is also true.
And he goes, this way, the dice can't fuck me.
Right.
Because I'm making somebody else roll.
Yep.
So Lance says, if Smith is rolling, things have gone wrong.
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a line.
And I, as his game master.
We should get that as a shirt.
Yeah. As his game master for like 30 years, I could say that, you've had some nice ones. You've had some nice
That's
good
the problem.
rolls.
I can't really complain because every time it's mattered,
It
came in hard.
Right. It's one of those.
Even your AV campaign, when you're rolling for fireballs and magic missiles, this season has been insane. You've been doing some work.
Yeah, but who died
But
because I couldn't roll higher
Well,
than a 10?
okay, sometimes.
But here's the problem. The problem is
We gotta remember, my first character PF2 was a fighter. Derek didn't think fighters were broken initially.
right.
Because he was gauging it off of me. And he was like, I don't see what the big deal is. He's missing, like, I don't know, 3 out of 4 of his rolls.
Yeah.
Probably needs a buff.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. And so he just doesn't want to roll because that way it's someone else's fault. But I was gonna say, the problem is, it's not the rolling well when it's important. It's rolling bad when it's not. That somehow it feels worse.
It's just
like
mocking.
Yeah, it's mocking. It's just this super trivial
it in.
thing. You're just trying to clean up the fight, and you're like, 2. And you're like, oh, come on.
Like in terms of vanity, right? Some people, I'd put you and maybe like Tim in this spot. Some people need to feel cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't need to feel cool.
I want to feel strong.
I just don't want to feel fucking stupid.
Right.
I don't like feeling worthless, which
Yes.
usually means I have to do a lot of damage. So I'm like, if that's my character
Well, that's how
supposed
you
to do,
define worth.
Yeah,
That's how you define
Well,
worth.
especially in these games where
Like,
I'm
I
usually
could
playing
play one of
Barbarian.
these so-called support wizard characters, and you would be like, I don't know about Aaron's character. Seems kind of worthless. And Derek would just be like,
Yeah. It'd
But I definitely don't like. It just depends because I think your sorcerer is super sweet in AV. Like a lot of stuff you're doing.
His sorcerer's also dropping fireballs and magic missiles like nobody's business. But
his eagle's an asshole. So
yeah, that's true. Laz says focus points came out of resonance and resonance powers, which was charisma plus level. I think focus points should be at least equal to charisma, and I've thought about house ruling that. I mean, I think focus
That
points
just makes sorcerer better though.
well, yeah. I mean, but again, Derek, personally, this is I'm done with, the classic. I won't even say Vancian. I'm just kind of over the spell slot system. It's just not. It's not.
You're getting like.
And
the
by the way,
Ultima
this
system?
is coming from somebody who loved Wizard. That was my class.
I know.
Okay, I loved
more
Wizard.
You've been
class
digging
than my
this
class.
Fabio Ultima thing, right?
Yeah, Wizard was more my class than yours.
Spell points.
No. I mean, Fabio Ultima's fine. It's more of just like
What do you want it to be?
the idea of the days of here is a list of 300 spells, 500 spells that all have a very hyper discrete effect. and you have to choose them, and you have these certain number of slots. Oh, but people are like, oh, power points. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
You're still just using your point.
Power points to cast a hard-coded spell still.
It doesn't work for me. So to me, it's not what I want to do in a role-playing game anymore.
I guess what is it that the sort? What if you got rid of spell slots? What would it? You just could do whatever you want.
I like the idea of magic being less commoditized, right? That magic isn't something that you use to wipe your ass with.
So, like, imagine if
You-
Derek's
so a
cast
totally
a
different
spell,
system, basically.
it was like a clock. We had to fill out a clock for Derek to complete his ritual, and when he did, it was it's not combat damage. It's like Derek's spell will lift a continent into the sky.
Yeah, or it doesn't even have to be at that level or epic of scale.
That's a huge.
It's
deal.
more of just like, I don't want it to be like this right now. I mean, for all people's complaints about 4th edition being video gamey,
Yeah.
there is nothing more gamey than spells in D&D. You're literally clicking the button and it does the thing.
Yeah.
It just click and it does this exact procedural text.
They're like mini programs.
Yeah, they're like little mini programs. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to click this firestorm spell. I'm going to click this wall of stone spell,
And it works exactly the
works
way it
exactly
works
the
every
same
time.
every single time, and it just produces this effect. That doesn't interest me. There's no excitement there.
mystery.
There's no mystery. There's no cost. There's no it feels just like
Derek likes magic to be magical.
yeah, I like magic to be magical. That's a great way to put
Like
it.
think about like actual like magic shows, right? Like when you were younger, did you ever go see like some illusionist? Or,
I've watched a lot of on TV.
Sure,
but
yeah. and did you ever go, wow, how did they do that?
Yeah.
And you didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that. Like the
Yeah,
actual
but I
like,
just
like
don't understand.
spark of magic.
I guess what I don't understand is how that happens when you get rid of spell slots. Like if you're spell slots, like it's like, okay, I know fireball, right? So I cast it.
No. He's saying like the spells. It's the whole system.
Oh, you don't even like the whole system.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were just talking about spell slots. I'm like,
No,
oh, okay.
I'm fine with it. It works. Whatever. It's D&D. It's that's part of the thing. I mean, part of the thing is that for me, this is a separate issue. Spells, to me, the classic way that spells were presented is very much tied into that. Combat is war.
Yeah.
Dungeon delving based approach. Taking my load out and customizing it.
I love loadouts.
Playing a wizard to me used to feel like building a Magic the Gathering deck.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking
Right.
at it.
I had all my spells at home.
That's actually why I first liked Magic.
The Gathering, the game, you mean?
Because I looked at it as a D&D wizard.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm preparing my spell book.
Yeah, well, I mean, literally, they were called spells,
Right.
in Magic the Gathering. And so the idea was I had this big collection of spells, but I'm going into a tournament. And I know that a lot of people in that tournament are running, black decks. So I'm going to build a white deck with a lot of protection from black creatures and spells, right? To be prepared for that tournament. And then I go into that, or to that club or that commander game and crush it because I used my resources and my planning to create, a plan and execute on that.
Yeah.
That's not the case as much anymore. It feels like Magic the game isn't really about that anymore. So
Well, certainly a modern era.
yeah, modern era games. I mean, maybe some OSR stuff is. So yeah. And I understand there's game reasons there though too. Ayla says ideally there should be a system that has prescriptive spells in addition to more freeform ritualistic magic. Too bad no such system exists, and of course it does. That's Fabula Ultima.
Yeah.
Because somebody did say so basically so what would you like? Fabula Ultima is a really good compromise.
Yep.
Because Fabula Ultima, for those of you who don't know, has a couple different spellcasting classes. You have like the White Mage, you have like the Elementalist Mage, you sort of have the Time and Space Mage. And there's like a list of like 12 or 13 spells from each class.
Yeah.
And they're very like mechanical. They're very like there's very little flavor.
Very fast. They're like 3 sentences, if that.
Yeah, 1 to 3 sentences. Heal says heal 40 hit points. Targets 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah,
That's
done.
it. No spells, no rolls, no anything. Everybody heals 40. And it's clearly designed to be used like in an in combat encounter type situation. Then separate to that, there are rituals, but it's not Pathfinder 2 rituals. This isn't 4th edition rituals where you have just another list of things.
Yeah. Spells, but different slots, basically.
They're spells, but you don't use slots.
Yeah.
You just get to make a skill check.
Yeah.
The way that rituals work in Fabula Ultima is You say, hey, I have a ritual. I can control Earth, right? That's what my thing lets me do. I want to put my hands into the ground and tap into the living stone and force a bridge across this chasm with my magic. And you and the GM will say, how hard is that? Well, there's some tables that say, well, it's about this, it's about this size. It's bigger than a breadbasket, smaller than a football field. So we'll put it here. And, you're not really doing that much. It's just a land bridge. That's kind of what land bridges do. It's kind of what rock does. Did you properly cantilever it? I don't know. We'll put the difficulty here. Okay, this is how much it costs in your mana points, or mind points. Here's the check. Make the check. You succeed. And now I can do these really cool magical effects without feeling like I, am hamstrung by this small list. But the plus upside of it is in combat, I don't want fucking somebody having to sit there and be like, let's calculate this spell and figure out exactly what it does and work with my GM to determine appropriate difficulty level and what the exact effects would be of me. No, I don't want to do that. I want your turn to be over in 5 seconds. So in combat, I like the short list of spells that just goes, I'm going to cast
Fire Blast.
I'm going to cast Fire Blast. Those 3 guys take 30 damage each. Fire. Cool. Next turn. Outside of combat, I want someone with the fire ritual to be able to call out to the burning forest fire and quench the flames.
That ritual thing reminds me a lot of Avatar. It's
Sure.
like what you could do. Like, I can control this element. So what can you do? What can you do?
What can you do?
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously inspired by games
Yeah.
like that. Probably more specifically the ritual power from Dungeon World.
From Dungeon World. Yes, absolutely. We did have a super chat.
We did?
Yep. It's from Cedric. Do you guys think a split between how combat and flavor exploration spells are tracked would work better? Yes. And no surprise here, Cedric, but that is basically how 4th edition did it. Because in 4th edition, your powers were called your encounter attack power.
Specifically attack.
Daily attack power, right? So all of the powers, when people think about 4th edition, they aren't wrong when they say, 4th edition's combat focused, as if every RPG isn't.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is,
RPG.
it was very clear. The powers, which are limited per day, per encounter, were attack powers. They were supposed to be used in combat. But that's because that's the place where the rules matter the most and where balance matters the most. Outside of combat, 4th edition had a ritual system where, unlike the ritual system of Fabula Ultima, where it's sort of free form and you make it up, this was a ritual book, very similar to what you might think of as like a wizard spell book. Except
Wizards even start with this.
It had, just like Pathfinder 2 has this, but just very small.
Yeah.
Pathfinder 2 has Resurrection, for example, is a ritual. I think Plane Shift is a ritual in Pathfinder 2. Well, imagine if so many spells in the game, aka basically the ones you would never cast in combat.
Right. Which is what we, during your spell review.
Like,
we're
case in point,
this is what PF2 should have done.
Feet to Fins, right, is a spell that gives everybody a swim speed. Doesn't let them breathe water, but it does give them a swim speed. That's another separate problem. That's a spell in Pathfinder 2. You have to use it. It has to be on your list. You have to have prep. If you're a wizard, you had to take it today. If you're a sorcerer, it has to be one of your spells that you've permanently learned forever. In 4th edition, same thing with like water breathing. In 4th edition, water breathing is a ritual. It doesn't take up your attack combat powers. It's on its own separate system of resources.
Kind of like that.
But you still have to, but if you don't have the water breathing ritual on your character sheet written down, I learned it in town, or I learned it from an old mentor mage. I learned it back at wizard school. If you don't have it, you can't cast it. There's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
I like that there's a fun part. Got to collect them all. Building out your rituals is a fun aspect of the game. It is fun.
Another super chat.
What do we got, Bob?
Hey, as from Guitar Guy Nick. Hey, I just got paid. Have some.
Thank you.
That's my kind.
Yeah.
That's how we should all be. Follow Guitar Guy Nick's example. Thank you.
Also, I'd have to say that the issue I have with PF2 is that if a player wants to do something, it's limited by if a feat exists, which is a heavy load on the GM and player.
Yeah, we're not going to go down that line, Guitar Guy Nick, but yeah, I mean, it is. It's actually Guitar Guy Nick. It's not Pathfinder 2 problem. It's not a Pathfinder 2 problem. It's a 4th edition D&D problem. It's a 3rd edition D&D problem. It's a 5th edition D&D problem. Any game that mechanizes things that you go, couldn't any human being do that? I feel like I could do this.
But once it's written.
But the moment you mechanize something because you want to give it to your player as a cool reward, it creates this problem. Now, the alternative is there are no feats.
Yeah.
And there are no class features.
Right.
And there are no class abilities. And then you're playing basic D&D.
Right.
Yeah.
Where your character gets nothing but abstract concepts like hit
Another
points, a lower THAC0 or a higher base attack bonus, right? These are meaningless concepts. There's nothing that ever says like, whoa, I took the thing that lets you jump far.
Yeah.
So now I jump far. And if I didn't have that.
I can do that because I took it.
Right. But it's like, okay, well.
I learned it, I earned it.
And this is where you also get into the situation where it's like, okay, so, I posited this example. Pathfinder 2. I don't know if you guys were here for this. I was trying to break people's brains. I was like, okay, who wins? Okay. Human, barbarian, 20th level, max strength.
It's all the same person.
Yeah, 20th level, human, barbarian, max strength, legendary in athletics, +3 item bonus from his Apex of Strength belt. Legendary athletics. Level 1, wizard. Took voluntary flaws to strength and con. But took the fleet feat. Who wins in a race?
Is a human bird, so they're 25 feet.
Yeah.
And then what's the wizard? Human wizard?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got 30 feet then. Yeah.
That's great.
Him all day.
Who wins? He wins all day.
All day.
He wins all day.
Yep.
So, that you might go, no, well, the barbarian, he'll make a check. No, he doesn't. That's not how any of this works.
That's not how any of that works.
Right. So now Lance makes a good point. He goes, how long is the race? This is true because you can only hustle for a number of rounds equal to your
right.
constitution.
Hustle.
But to be fair,
That has nothing to do with athletics.
no, to be fair, that has nothing to do with
it's
athletics.
level.
But if it's a con, so assuming the barbarian has a higher con,
Has nothing to do with him being level 20 though.
but it has nothing to do with him being
Oh,
level.
I thought it was level.
No.
Oh, okay.
And even then, by the way, it is gross. A con 8 wizard can hustle for I think like an absurd. It's a minimum of 10 minutes. So it doesn't matter that his con is 8 because it gets rounded up to 10 minutes. Anyways, point is it's like it's a good like 10K that he can run. 10K. Asthmatic level 1 wizard beats the level 20 barbarian in the race every time. Every time. I mean, and so this is the problem. What happens when you create mechanics for things of this? When you have these ideas like speed, and we have mechanics that interact with those things, and then it's like you're suddenly stuck in a position where you either have to deny the narrative of what makes sense in this story. Mm-hmm. We don't want to do. That's why we're playing role-playing games and not playing a board game. But also, you're like, but I also don't want to shit all over the game. That's not what I came here to do. There's a reason that people get excited about taking feats, and there's a reason why people get excited about leveling up, because you want those things to mean something.
Yeah.
And if they don't,
I get
then
it.
what are we leveling up for?
What are we even doing?
What are we even doing here? And so you're stuck. It's a really tough spot to be in. Now, Klaus says this is why there are GMs in the game. Even Pathfinder can't make rules for every thinkable scenario. Klaus, you are 100% correct. However, Klaus,
on Reddit or the forums.
there are plenty of rules that are out there in Pathfinder 2, and sometimes it is going to work against how people want to do it. This gets into a whole separate concept because a lot of times people will say, oh, well, if someone comes up with a cool creative idea, but there's a feat for it, and they don't have the feat, I let them do it. I just make it way less effective, require a really high skill check, very hard DC, or I make it take a bunch of actions. And I said, okay, so you're penalizing them for trying to be smart and creative and interesting. You're basically telling them you should have taken the fucking feat.
Mm. They don't have to penalize.
You're trying to work outside. No, but if you don't, then you're penalizing the person who did take the feat.
Damn.
Now you might say, well, no, my party took the feat. Okay.
Then you win.
Then you win. But it's about the fact that players they'll look at their abilities, and when they should feel like, wow, I get one of these, and this choice matters.
Not for Jim, like I just like you.
But
more.
no, but this is where the party gets together and they go, guys, nobody take feats. That way we can do anything. And the GM can't, and he's not shitting on anybody when he gives us anything. You can power attack, I can power attack. None of us have power attack. But the moment you take power attack,
right.
now suddenly I can't power attack. Now you're special. And I gotta defend your niche.
Hey, he took a choice that literally millions of people took, so he's unique now. Just like all those other people.
Now, King Fate says speed isn't the same as strength. A bodybuilder yoked out of their mind can be inhibited by those muscles. I feel athletics not being related to speed is fine. Bad example.
Great point. The barbarian skipped leg day.
Yeah, the barbarian did skip leg day. Except the athletics does determine how far you can jump. So it is.
So can the barbarian like jump his way through? Isn't jump still limited by your speed?
Yes.
So never mind. He's still lost.
But my point is athletics is absolutely tied to overall athletic performance. It's climbing. It's
athletics is
athletics.
The strength.
Yes.
The actual word strength.
Right.
Yes, bodybuilders obviously can be strong, but you can be a strong runner.
Klaus says a player conspiracy to not take feats is hilarious.
That is kind of funny.
Right, because you're like,
valid.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, I think that's the new meta, the no feat meta. Right, you go get your GM, you get him to be really open minded and be like, hey, listen, I understand that you need to protect things. If somebody takes, power attack, or if somebody takes, demolition charge, I get that it wouldn't be fair to that player if we could all suddenly do that. And I get that you want to reward us for being creative and thinking, and you don't want to penalize us by saying, oh, you can totally do the power attack, but I'm going to apply the double map before you attack, right? Instead of after you attack, because that way it's fair. It's like, I don't want to do that to you. I want it to be cool. And you described your character jumping off of the thing, and I want to give you the power attack. And I'm like, okay, but if somebody else takes power attack, I can't do that for you. You got to penalize it somehow. It's got to mean something. The feat other way. All right, none of us take feats. Now we can do anything. Cross blood evolution. I learn heal. Wait, you're not even a sorcerer. Doesn't matter. I could have taken it somehow.
You're a fighter. You don't even have magic.
You're a fighter. Ayla says, secret third option. That feat is stupid and doesn't exist in my game. Everyone can just do this. Well, Ayla, you can take that and apply that to almost every feat in the game.
I do feel some feats are particularly poorly written, and some feats are okay for this, right? Like cross blood evolution is an example. Well, what is this feat doing?
Correct.
Well, it's harnessing the power of my specific bloodline to allow me to tap into a different.
No, it's saying you're a mongrel. You're a mutt. You're
a mutt. So I got divine and
so
imperial.
you're ancient. Your ancient imperial. Your great granddaddy who was emperor was apparently banging some angel.
Right.
And that blood
as one does.
and that as one does,
There
and
you go.
you're descended from that line. So there you go.
And like
But just enough
thematically,
to get a spell.
mechanically,
But just enough to get a spell.
just one spell. Unless I take the other feat, and then it was apparently good enough for two.
Right.
But
There was some inbreeding.
there's enough narratively and mechanically going on there where like justifying why someone else should get that spell doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yes.
But if someone was like, Derek, I forsake all defenses and put everything I have into this one strike, how does that not sound completely reasonable? And also, by the way, thematically cool. How many times have we seen that in a movie?
Sounds like reckless attack.
I mean, like for example, if I was DMing, right? All Derek has to do is quote Wheel of Time. Smith, I sheathed the blade. I'm like, okay, well, of course I'm going to crit you, but of course you crit me.
Right.
Like that's just how it has to work.
Right. And to be clear, the inherent problem, you can totally do this, and you can totally play games this way, but you are operating without any guardrails.
Oh no! I'm not.
And your game is not
I'm
at
not
all
advocating. I'm saying that using power attack as an example, like that's why there's so much trouble with feats like that.
Yes.
Because you're like if I as a peasant could figure out how to do this, why is it a feat that I have to choose?
Right. And then that's not even getting started on diegetic progression in RPGs.
What's diegetic?
Happening in game. So, for example, if your character said, "Hey, how much what we got? Oh, we're playing this epic campaign, and it's going to occur over a generation. We've got 3 years of downtime." And you're like, "What do you do, Bob?" And you're like, I'm going to go run every day, win sprints. I'm going to go just run every day, I'm going to make Iliad
I want to
Kipchoge.
beat that level 1 wizard.
Yeah, I'm going to train every single day. I'm like, all right, how long do you do that? You're like, dude, 2 years, 3 years. You're like, sick. And like, does my speed increase? I'm like, well, no, you didn't take the feat. Well, how do I take the feat? Got to level up.
Gotta level up. How do I level up? Gotta go on an adventure.
So like, all right, how about I go work out a lot? Can I? No. And why? Well, rightfully so. that would break the game.
Well, and to be fair,
That would-
this
that
is
would-
a perfect example when we get all the nerds on our Discord that are like,
to be fair, that's us too.
or us too, or our commenters, right? Who are like, PF2 is such a simulationist game, right? And I'm just like, what the fuck, right? That's a perfect example, right? Because one of the hotnesses early on were the Elder Scroll video games.
Mhm.
You know, Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind, Daggerfall. You guys have probably at least heard of some of these,
Yes.
right? And
I
one of the
may.
reasons they were so cool is because they had skill-based progression. So
Sure.
if you want to get better at swinging a sword, you swung a sword.
Mm-hmm.
If you have swung your sword for 30 levels and decide today is the day that you want to start lighting things on fire with your mind, then you start lighting things on fire with your mind. And you're not as good as the guy that did that for 20 levels, but over time, you will go from to boom, 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 because you did it. And you could literally have a gameplay experience where you are sitting in like a tavern, lighting a candle on fire, like for 8 hours in that game before you run out of mana and have to go upstairs and go to sleep. And you do that for a week in game.
Sounds like a real job.
And you get better. Well, I'm pointing out the flaws of the system too, right? Again, I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm saying they're different.
Right. Well, because what is that rewarding? What kind of, because
Exactly.
we always talk about gameplay rewarding. The thing about experience and all of your cool abilities being linked to experience is that means if you want to go do the cool thing, you got to go fucking adventure.
Right.
And that is cool.
And that's because D&D was like, go adventure.
Right.
Not go practice lighting candles.
No, D&D didn't even fuck around that much. Somehow people...
D&D was like, go get treasure.
D&D's like, we want this game to be about treasure. Go get treasure. Treasure gives you experience. Experience makes you level up.
Which I like.
You're like,
Why is
wait,
getting
wait.
treasure cool? Because money's cool.
Yeah, because money's cool. Why wouldn't you want money? Everyone wants to get rich, right?
Everyone who made and played D&D
Well,
is
because
poor.
at 1974, when that came out, no one knew what the hell a level was.
Right.
But everyone knew what gold was. Right. So it's like, yeah, who cared about a level? That means nothing to me. Right. But gold, I mean, that's a lot.
Right.
Let's see.
Probably
here.
get back on the sorcerer train.
Well, it's fine. Lazarus says feats are designed to protect players from GMs that don't allow fun and to protect GMs with munchkin players. That's pretty reasonable. Sane and reasonable tables don't really need them as much. And I actually completely agree with you. Yeah. I mean, in fact, despite the fact that Pathfinder 2 gives you a feat every level, more or less, sometimes 2 a level. And then people are like, and I use free archetype. So many people that I know that play Pathfinder 2, like in our Discord community, always end up giving players additional new abilities and crazy divine
like it.
bonuses and all this other
Yeah,
stuff.
they want them to feel unique.
Right. But it's like, but you're already getting all this stuff anyways.
Yeah, but this stuff wasn't unique.
Well, this one, I'm saying, so you could play a game where you still got all that cool stuff, just uniquely and through the game only.
Sure.
You know, how did you get that? Oh, power attack. What'd you do? You took power attack. No, I went to the Minotaur city and I bested their champion.
I like that stuff.
Okay, in one-on-one combat.
Oh, let's be honest. Oh, you guys probably haven't seen Rings of Power, huh?
No, I have not seen Rings of Power.
Oh no, I just started watching it and I stopped.
You should not watch Rings of Power. You should watch Rings of Power.
I'm working on it. I just haven't time.
Because
Anime's
it's
taking-
one of the worst television shows ever
So
made.
it's probably amazing.
You're going to love it.
It's probably amazing.
I'm going to describe the scene to you. Derek's going to roll his eyes and cry. You're going to love this scene. There's a scene where Elrond,
Okay.
right, shows up.
Elrond the Wise Seer, the one who is also known as Elrond the Wise, Elrond the one gifted with the ability of foresight.
He might become that.
Okay.
This is Elrond, the guy that walked from his elf town straight to I don't know. I'm not remember everything today. Where Moria is.
Khazad-dûm?
Khazad-dûm. Walked without a backpack or any food or supplies.
Well, he is an elf.
Fucker's got to eat.
Lembas, baby.
Wore a robe.
Maybe he's a Leshy and he
It
just survives
rains.
off the sun.
That's not even the part. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. That's bad and very noticeable. But like, that's not even the part I'm talking about. So he gets in here, and his buddy Durin is mad because Elrond forgot that he's an elf and that other people die. And so it's been 20 years since they hung out. So imagine like if I just didn't see you for 20 years and then show up, was like, "What's up, Bob? Want to play?"
Hey, where have you been?
Right, exactly. So it's like that. So, anyways, they had this contest because he wants to exile Elrond or whatever the fuck. And the contest is the dwarf and the elf are going to shatter rocks with their hammer. And whoever,
Wait, what?
yeah, they bring in rocks And then each one takes a hammer and they shatter the rocks. And the first one to get too tired or fails to shatter a rock loses.
Okay.
And so they do this for like, I don't know, 4 days.
Okay.
And that's where you could have learned power attack, is what I'm saying, right?
Oh.
Those are scenes there because you would watch
I
this
was
scene.
wondering where this was going.
Sorry, you'd watch this scene and be like, "That's awesome! They're just breaking rocks. It's so cool." Derek's
Breaking
like,
skulls,
clutching his
maybe.
head.
Yeah, it seems so stupid.
Yeah. Now the one thing I'll appreciate though from that scene, which you'll appreciate and you won't, is that they did accidentally, because I'm sure it wasn't intentional, respect the Tolkien elf, because people don't appreciate that the Tolkien elf.
Oh, it's like a superhuman.
Superhuman.
Yeah.
Including super strong.
Yeah.
Like-
There's a great deleted scene from Return of the King after the Battle of Helm's Deep is won, and it's the start of Return of the King, and they're celebrating in Mithulad, the hall of Rohan, and Gimli challenges Legolas to a drinking contest.
Oh yeah, this is great.
And
I don't think I've seen
this
it.
is a deleted
It's
scene.
amazing scene.
It's in the extended edition, and it's a dwarf versus an elf.
Yeah.
And like
Now, who do you think's gonna win?
Dwarf.
right? Well, they show the thing of Gimli.
I will tell you, it was no contest.
Yeah, it was no contest. They show Gimli's thing, and there's like 18, 20 mugs of ale, and he's like, like foaming at the mouth, and he's just like, ah. And then it goes over to Legolas, who's just like killing him, shotgunning him, and there's like 30 of them, and he goes, I think I'm starting to feel something. Because he's an elf.
He's an elf. Elves were just
I'm gonna
broken.
look that one up.
Elves are just broken. There's a great, you've seen this part, but you probably never noticed it. In Fellowship of the Ring, when Eru Iluvatar made the elves, he made them to be untouched by the ravages of time or weather or anything. Basically, like nature leaves them alone. So when they're up on, they're trying to cross the Misty Mountains and they're going over Karadahas, the pass, and Sauron is speaking the spell. It's all snowing.
He's dropping the blizzard.
He's dropping the blizzard on them, and they have to go back and go through the Moria. If you watch, Legolas doesn't sink into the snow.
I actually heard about
He
that.
walks on top of it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And that's not.
seeing it,
And
but
it's
I've
not,
heard that
it's not because he's like so light-footed.
Right.
No, it's because he's an elf, and like God was like, snow doesn't bother you guys.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, just so yeah, sorcerer.
Side tangent.
Side tangent.
Well, when you were talking about the power tech, like going to train, it reminded me of which I watch more as anime and Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
They would go in like, all right, I can't beat this guy. I'm gonna go in this like
The pressure
hyperbolic
chamber.
space chamber.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go train for hundreds of years in this thing and not age and I'm gonna come out
9,000
super freaking
times
strong.
Earth's
Now I can do
gravity.
Super Saiyan. And like that was really cool. So I actually like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but the problem is, again, there's a game here. There's a reward cycle. In real life, the way you get better at things is you study hard. You dedicate long hours to
Or you're
focus
born as
and
an elf.
practice, right? Or you're born and your mom and dad have money. But like D&D, it's like, are those the behaviors that we really want to encourage? Probably not.
No, murder hobo.
Because that's fun.
King
Killing
Fate.
people
I don't know.
and
I don't,
taking their shit is why we're here.
I don't know. Brendan Lee Mulligan is the GM from Dimension 20, but King Fate here is quoting him. I don't know what this context is. He says, "Reading, you're not going to get good at magic from reading, my man. You got to get out there and fucking kill people. People got to die." That's a great quote.
It's true.
I will say, like, you
That's
ever
great.
talk to someone who's seen combat, like, they tend to be fairly worldly.
Yeah, that's true. That's
If nothing else, that sort of experience gives you
a sense of perspective.
yes.
Yeah. So, any case, so sorcerer, wrap us up here.
Sorcerer. We didn't even talk about Shugenja,
We didn't
which
even.
is a sorcerer.
Oh, we got Bob.
The Shugenja.
All right. All right. Here we go. All right.
This is
The
Bob's
other
favorite version
sorcerer.
of sorcerer.
I've cast 2 spells in 5 or 6 sessions.
Yeah.
To be fair, I also attacked about as many times. So
That is true.
I did do a ritual.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the Shugenja is what's interesting in L5R is the magic is like I want to say forsaken, but it's like
Well,
really
that's
mystical.
more
no,
where
no.
Derek is at.
Here's why.
Real mystical.
Right, because in Legend of the Five Rings, you don't prepare spells a day.
Yeah.
You ask the spirits
Yes.
and the kami, and
It
you
has
have
consequences.
to please them,
Yep.
and you have to make sure that they're happy with you. And in order to please, grant me your powers so that I can do this thing. And you can piss them off.
Yep.
They can throw it back in your face. They are capricious. They are, whimsical.
Risk.
There's a lot of risk. There's even a mechanic when you make a spell check in this game called what's it called? Overload or Oh, geez, what's it
Remember
called?
Overload? Something.
It's called. Damn it, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I liked about
Surge or something.
what I liked about it too when I've never in that 20 levels of a sorcerer in PF2
Right.
I never cast a single spell. I think almost positive like besides like
Spiritual backlash.
oh yeah, spiritual backlash out of combat. Like I mean, yeah, there was like heal, but like I never like did something.
You
out
would
of
cast heroism before a fight.
but we're going into a fight, yeah. But in this one, we were like, I retire for the night, and I need to somehow convince, the daimyo that I'm gonna like be on this mission, and I'm like, how am I gonna do this? And I'm like, I'm gonna use like my ritual here to like do this, and I'm like, that felt so different. I was not used to doing that.
That being
it was
said,
really cool though.
when you did cast in combat, like I talked about this before.
Oh
but
yeah,
From my perspective as another player at this table, right? The first time Bob cast a spell in a fight, it was like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
When the harpies attack in the arena, and then the dragon shows up.
Yep.
And that's what it was like. Up until this point, this was like 6 sessions in.
Yeah.
Up to this point, and you remember early Game of Thrones, right? It's like, I don't know, man. It seems like dudes in armors and swords and everything's kind of like
politics.
medieval Europe.
Right. And like the biggest magic thing that we've seen is like, oh, those guys are clearly made of ice, but they're just like dudes made of ice.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
They still die.
Yeah. They're not.
Right. And so like you're worried about tea ceremonies and games of Go and like, will this wound kill me from infection? Like these are your concerns, right? And then Bob Shugenja cast a spell and men were on fire. They were split apart. Like it was like the dragon showed up and just decided to fucking kill everyone.
Right.
And you're like, how is this the same world? Like everything was changed in that moment.
it did help that I cast it on my
Yojimbo.
Yojimbo, who was a what's her clan?
Matsu.
And I also like got a bunch of exploding
Yeah,
dice. I would rip this person apart.
But the
it
key,
helped me. It helped me.
But no, but to answer your question, why isn't this world completely different? I mean, I know you know the answer.
No.
But like, why isn't this world completely different? Why isn't Bob just doing this every single time? Because he can't.
He can't. Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You had the big ask. You were like, hey, spirits, we're about to get killed by all these crane samurai. Little help.
Time to shine.
Little help. And why don't you go?
Spoke.
Yeah, they spoke.
Yes.
And that's the difference, right? Is that when he speaks, they listen.
And we know in that game how like Bob rolled amazing. Bob could have rolled horrible.
Yes.
Karen says, then everything changed when the Shugenja nation attacked.
I mean, that would be rough.
Well, let's start thinking they're very rare.
Yeah.
They are rare.
Right? It's like I'm like kind of highly respected because of the fact
Oh,
that
You're
I
not
do this.
allowed to fight.
You're hyper respected.
Yeah.
You were hyper respected.
I mean, even though I'm a huge dick in this game, like there's a respect like that.
But
guy.
but that's one of the reasons why you can get away with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true.
It's kind of cool. But I like that. I like that. It makes me feel way different than I did as a sorcerer in PF2, where I felt like I could have been anybody. Anybody can cast spells, but in this game, I'm like, no, I'm the guy who, if crap hits the fan, I got to call upon the spirits and hopefully be able to do what we needed to get done. If not, we're relying on you to actually fight.
Which is just a normal dude.
Yeah.
Right. Lazarus Dark, it finishes off here, so we're about to wrap up. $5 tip says, good stream, guys. I'll catch the VOD later. We're going to be wrapping up, Laz, so hopefully you won't miss too much. I got to go get some canes now, and it's your fault. I love it.
Just know, Laz, every time you see us, one of us is eating canes.
That's true.
Yeah, it is very close.
It's just right across the street from the studio. So we are going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody who came in today. We did have a stream goal that got reached, so I'm not going to be streaming on Thursday.
Nice.
Because if I get my holiday break.
This is a previous stream goal that got reached.
Yeah, this was a previous stream goal that got reached. Does Derek get a holiday break or not? It got reached. I do. But I think the plan is I'm going to be on Roll for Combat tomorrow.
Oh.
I have no idea what the topic is, but if you want to check us out, usually 2-3 p.m. Eastern. I have no idea what we're going to be talking about, but I always
Is
enjoy
anybody else on it? Just you?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Steven doesn't tell me these things. He just says,
Are you available?
Are you available?
Sneaks no net on you.
Yeah, right. But that being said, it's going to be the holidays. And, these guys, I think you've got 2 Thanksgivings.
Yeah, I'm basically, after this, don't talk to me until this is the weekend.
Right. And
Yeah,
you
I'll
have
see you next week.
you have 2 Thanksgiving. I do not. In fact, I have like half a Thanksgiving, right? I'm going to swing by my sister's and pick up some, turkey to go. Basically, there's not even going to be like a family. It's just her, just my sister and my brother-in-law, and my nephews. Maybe my mom will stop by. But so I have off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all of Thursday. I can't promise there won't be a stream because I just might get fucking bored,
Right.
especially since these guys are going to basically be out of office.
Yeah.
So,
I'll be playing lots of board games, I think.
which is great. I
Yeah.
mean, I love
I'll be
it.
playing that Fire Tower, and then cartography is actually super fun.
Oh yeah.
I played it with a couple of friend group, and I was like, "This game is actually a lot of fun."
That was a Stephen Glicker recommendation.
And my wife goes, "What made you buy this game?" Like, they just told me to buy it, and I just trusted them.
Yeah.
Same with Fire Tower. I'm like, I just trusted. I saw Fire Tower being played.
No, you saw it.
But I trusted you guys. But the cartography one, I totally just was like, you guys said it was good. Steven especially was like really into
No,
it.
Steven was the
Yeah.
one who told me to play it, and it was really good. And you know what the thing?
It's a really good game.
It's great for that type of environment.
Yep.
It involves everybody. It's quick. It's simultaneous.
Yep.
And so it
Low level skill to enter.
very
light rules.
but it's not Candyland.
Nope. There's strategy to
There's
it.
definitely strategy to it. It's a very light level strategy, but it's fun. And drawing in your map is fun.
Yes.
Like that.
Drawing on something else is fun too.
Yeah, and the monsters are cool.
Yeah.
So that is going to wrap it up for us. Thank you to Bob and Aaron for joining me this evening. Thank you to all of you who came in and celebrated us with the Sorcerer. Obviously, we had to fill in a bunch of stuff and talk about magic and Vancy and casting, but that's just because the Sorcerer doesn't go back to the 1970s like the rest of them. It's a relatively new class, and I think.
Which is funny because I just
I've
assume
said it
all
before.
these exist for like ever. You know what I mean?
Nope. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'd love to see. I love the 4th edition Sorcerer because it did something different.
Yep.
It felt mechanically distinct from the Wizard. And yes, we get Bloodlines in Pathfinder 2, and you get sorcery points in 5th edition, but they're still fundamentally operating off of the same lists of spells that everybody else is using. And that's what made
3.0.
Yeah, all both better than 3.0, 100%. Yeah, the Sorcerer in 3.0 was pretty boring.
Yep.
Powerful because spellcasting was powerful, but not on the level of the other casters. But 4th edition, that's a pretty cool Sorcerer. You may not like that style, but you got to appreciate that it is distinct.
And this is one of the things that's just neat about 4th edition. When you think about the types of parties, like I like all of them, but I also think like an arcane powered party.
Sure.
So that's your not spell sword,
spell mage,
your bard,
sword mage,
thank you.
Yeah, sword mage, bard, sorcerer, wizard. Yeah, actually, you need 5 people in the piece.
You need to find one.
Warlock.
Oh,
It's another striker.
Another striker.
So you can have a party where you have a sword mage as your defender, a bard as your leader, a warlock and a sorcerer as your 2 strikers, and then have a wizard
cool
as a controller. That's all things.
That's a cool part.
Yeah, you can do the same
You
thing.
do it divine?
The divine.
Yeah.
You cannot do it with martial.
Right.
Because with
No martial controller.
Right. Actually, though, with divine, there aren't 2 divine strikers. So there's the blackguard technically, but whatever. It doesn't really count.
You have
Anyway.
Avenger.
Ayla sliding in with a super chat at the end of the stream.
Oh, what do we got?
Cheers. Here's to the PF2 Sorcerer meta. R.I.P. Wizard.
Yeah,
Wizard.
R.I.P. Wizard. That's all right. You had a good run, buddy.
Not surprised that Pius decided to shit on a wizard who maybe lived on the coast.
Oh, I was wondering what you were talking about there.
I mean, that's true. Wizard. That was their home campaign, and that was like the wise sage, kind of like the Gandalf. It was the wizard of the coast, and that was like in their campaign.
Get fucked, Goblin Alchemist.
Yeah. Right. The Goblin Alchemist came in and firebombed the Wizard of the Coast Tower.
What is his name?
Fizzban?
Is it? No.
No,
Fizzban is the dragon, F5E dragon, Fizzban's treasury.
No,
thing.
Fizzban is the name of Paladin, is a mortal form on Earth.
No, I can't remember. It's like, I have it too at home.
Chat, come on, help us out.
Yeah, it's
What
like
name are we
Nebo
trying to
or
remember?
something,
The
isn't it?
crazy goblin firebombing alchemist.
You know the iconics?
Oh, the iconic. I don't know.
The Goblin Alchemist.
I know, like
is one.
Esbern.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget what he is, but I have.
I always play him in the card game.
I have a card of him. Fizz Buzz, really?
No, it's from George.
Oh, dang it!
Fumbus.
That's right.
I don't know if George was close or if he,
I can't always remember when George because he's got so many different names. And Lance talking like,
George
oh,
wasn't far off.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if George actually knew it and was just making fun of it.
That's
but
just how bad the name
That's
is.
just how bad. Fumbus.
Fumbus,
Yeah,
that's right.
Fumbus.
Because I have the Fumbus dice and Fumbus playing card.
Yeah. I of all the classes that that a goblin could be, alchemist is probably the one I'm okay with them being. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us from here, from Night's Last Call Studio, from the Keep.
Is that what we're calling
Is
it?
that what we're calling it?
I don't know. We never came up with a name for
You
the
said it out
studio.
loud and I don't like it.
You don't like it? The Keep?
I don't
Not
mind
now.
the keep.
I don't know. Comment. Leave us a suggestion below. What should we call the studio?
Like and subscribe.
Like and
Comment
subscribe.
below.
Oh, join our Patreon.
That's right.
Just because you should.
Just because.
Yeah. Lots of great benefits, lots of cool things. And more importantly, you get to talk to us and all these fine people all the time. Unlike many content creators, I'm actually on my Discord.
And apparently we'll be more active this week.
I'm active all the time.
Yeah, but you'll not. Yeah, you're gonna be bored this week. No work. You're
That's true.
on work right now.
I work tomorrow, but they
Oh.
told us it's basically a get your stuff done and then call it quits.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty good for me. The Keep of Last Call. See, we could keep
I don't mind keep.
the Adventurers Tavern.
Doesn't really look much like a
No, this is like a dungeon.
It does look more tavernish on the screen, but
Okay.
But anyways, I don't know.
I guess we have a lot of booze.
we do have a lot of booze.
We do have a lot of booze. One day, Bob,
I'll be back.
you'll be back.
Yeah, I debated whether to have a glass of wine for
No,
Thanksgiving.
I appreciate that
but,
you're holding
yeah.
steady.
I'll probably drink for Christmas, but that's about it.
Sometimes it's important to test your limits and
Yeah,
know-
I actually like testing my willpower.
right, exactly.
It makes me know that when I would do fasting and stuff like that, I was like, now when I get hungry, I'm like, "Pfft, I fasted before. Like this is not. I know I can go longer than this.
Right,
And so
exactly.
I can test my mental strength, and I know I can handle it.
Right.
It's kind of
exactly. Awesome. Well, you gentlemen have a fantastic Thanksgiving.
Same
Everybody at home, if you're in the U.S., have a great Thanksgiving. If you're not, stay safe out there. Be well. Be good to each other. Be thankful for
Yes, if
everything.
you're not in America, what do you possibly have to be thankful for?
It could be nothing.
I mean, free med care. Come on,
Food
food that doesn't poison you when you eat it.
Right.
A working education system.
There's so much to love.
Sounds horrible.
Sounds horrible. All right.
What about the shareholders?
What about the shareholders? What about the sorcerers? Let us know your comments below. I'd love to hear from all of you who aren't members of our Patreon. Well, you should join our Patreon and tell us your stories up personally. But otherwise, let me know. What are some of your favorite sorcerer stories? I'm sure there's some great ones out there, mostly involving sorcerers going ham and just unloading fireball after fireball after fireball and until everything was dead. And I'm here for it. I want to hear those stories. So let me know your favorite stories. If you've played the Sorcerer across the editions, let us know, what is your favorite Sorcerer? Is it the Pathfinder 2 Sorcerer?
Yeah.
Is it the 3rd edition Sorcerer?
That would actually be a really cool comment to
Yeah.
see, like, if you played if you played if you catched them all, if you played them all, and you were like, you know what, I disagree that you guys think the 4E1 is very cool, or I really like this one. That's actually a pretty cool comment to read.
Yeah, so-
it'd be good information.
Because another thing I do that other content creators don't do, I read all my comments. So I especially like the ones that are very negative, because then I heart it and I pin it to make sure everybody else can see it.
That's right.
That's right.
And then we make fun of those comments on our Discord.
Or I learn from the example.
Depends on the comment.
There were a couple.
There are some that really get it right.
Here's the thing. I
Oh,
wouldn't
there's
call them negative, right? Because
Some
there's
people are constructive criticism.
constructive criticism where
Yeah.
someone comes back for a great point. We're like, holy shit, that's a great point.
Yeah.
The only thing I would ever call negative is just like, why did you even bother to log in and type this? This doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, it happens. Not as much as you'd think.
Not as much.
Not as much as you'd think. Not anymore. But I think people have gotten used to
But
it.
if you want to, do that, because then we'll laugh at you and it'll be funny.
Right. I mean,
But
again,
like and subscribe first.
but like and subscribe first.
And
Click the
then
bell
comment, 'cause then
so that
it'll
you can be
help, yeah.
irritated all the time.
Right.
helps the algorithm.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. And we'll see you next time on Nights of Last Call.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Peace.